Welcome to another episode of Submission Radio. It's April 19th. I'm Dennis Shkradov here with Kasper Ozlowski. UFC on Foxcast. What an exciting night of fights that just transpired over the weekend.
It was a very exciting card, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today and breaking down the card along with some big, sexy, juicy guests. We've got Bas Rutten returning to the show, Chad Mendes, Mike Swick, and a quick stopover from UFC flyweight and Aussie Richie Vas. We're going to be talking to him very briefly about UFC Fight Week. It's a new show here in Australia. It's on Fox Sports. It's on Thursdays every week at 9 o'clock. And just a quick note with Bas Rutten, we actually caught up with Bas a little bit earlier. I figured I'd mention that. Bas, obviously, with his busy schedule, had a really long chat with him, actually. It's a really, really in-depth interview, mainly about just what's happening in the UFC today. More of a fun chat, just sort of breaking things down, analyzing things. And let me tell you, Bas tells us some crazy, crazy stories. We talked to him about Mark Kerr, and he tells us, I don't know if he's told anyone this before, but he tells us a really interesting story to do with Mark Kerr basically shooting up and things like that. So definitely listen to the Bas Rutten interview. I had a couple of audio issues, actually. One of our mics disconnected, but nevertheless, really, really good interview. And of course, Mike Swick, Chad Mendes, and Richie Vas on the show also.
Yeah, that's right. He talks about how he almost fought Evander Holyfield. So many great stories. His thoughts on Brock Lesnar, his thoughts on Anderson Silva, just his thoughts
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor, everything you guys can think of. Bas is a very special guy, and we love having him on the show. We've had him on the show a bunch of times, and every time we have him on, it's always an honor and a pleasure. Also, guys, if you still haven't checked it out, we do release a Technique of the Week every Wednesday. It's basically a bunch of techniques, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a whole bunch of them. Latest one for all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu heads out there is the impassable, unpassable guard with a sweep and ankle lock variation. It's pretty crazy. It's something really, really special, and you know what? I'm a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Cass. It's something that I'm looking at closely for my gi sessions because it's something that I haven't really seen before. So, guys, check it out. It's at youtube.com/Submission Radio AU, along with a lot of other great videos. We obviously have a lot of interviews up there. Interview with Mark Coleman last week. We had Chris Liebman on the show talking a lot about a whole bunch of stuff. So check out the channel. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. You know, we really appreciate it. Or give us a comment. We love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and while you're talking about the Technique of the Week, just letting you know that we will be recording a new batch really soon, I believe in the next few weeks. So if there are any specific techniques that you want to see us do, or obviously we don't do them, we get other guys who are a lot more professional to do the techniques, or if there's any questions just in general. I know we've got quite a few questions on a lot of the techniques about, you know, certain variations and no-gi and stuff like that. Or if there's something you'd rather see, if you want to say, hey guys, why don't you do more no-gi techniques and things like that, definitely let us know. Drop a comment in below or on the actual technique itself. We always love interacting with you guys, like Dennis said, on Twitter at SubmissionAUS or on the YouTube channel itself. I think that's pretty much enough housekeeping. We're going to get on with the show, and our first guest is joining us live, and I believe, Dennis, it's time to introduce the man.
Our next guest is making his return to the UFC octagon against Alex Garcia at UFC 189. And after a break from MMA, building aka Thailand from the ground up, he is going to be back exciting fans around the world and putting on the contest that we're excited to watch. He's a contestant from the first ever Tough and a UFC veteran. Ladies and gentlemen, it's our pleasure to welcome Mike Quick Swick back to Submission Radio. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's really good to have you back on the show. Obviously, we met you in Sydney, so it's really great to have you on. Now, Mike, it feels like it wasn't that long ago since you last fought Matt Brown, but that was back in December 8th of 2012. Now we're in 2015. I guess the big question is, did you miss fighting during your time away from the sport?
Yeah, I definitely missed it. The two fights I had on Fox were kind of a turning point with my health and stuff, where I did think it was over, you know, so I'd already been pursuing the gym in Thailand. I've already been here trying to build it. But after those two fights where I tried to make myself ready and tried to make myself good to go and convince myself, it was kind of a vital point in my career where it was time to kind of let go and understand that my health isn't going to get better at that stage, and I just need to focus on building a gym and training fighters and doing what I can do. And then just during the process of building this gym, I actually got everything under control, and my health is the best it's been since I dropped to welterweight. I mean, we're talking 8 years, so it's amazing that everything's kind of like panned out perfectly as we built this thing.
Yeah, it's that Thailand lifestyle. Now, obviously, Mike, it has been quite a while since your last fight. Just wondering, during that process, did you ever have thoughts of retirement cross your mind? I mean, you were away for a few years. Did you ever possibly think in a part of your mind that, hey, maybe there won't be a comeback?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I never officially retired, but after that last fight, that was, like I said, the turning point in my career where I knew if my health didn't get better, that I couldn't do this. You know, I just couldn't eat the food I need and get the recovery that I needed to compete at that level and feel good. And so I literally took it completely out of my mind. I completely assumed I wasn't going to fight. I accepted it, and I just continued to build this gym and develop fighters and train fighters. And it was just a great process because during, you know, I found my health and I figured out how to basically fix my health without taking all the medications that they were having me on. And I'm literally the healthiest I've been maybe my whole UFC career. And so now I get the opportunity, perfect timing, to be able to do this camp out of this gym that I built here. And me and my business partner, Blair, we worked really hard to build what I envision as kind of like the perfect gym and have everything here that you need. And it's amazing. I'm so pumped up to be actually here and training and utilizing what we built to prepare for a huge card and a huge fight.
Yeah, I think the first time we spoke to you, Mike, was about a year ago, and since then we've seen that gym evolve, and it's really cool seeing those photos. And you know, you're a lucky guy. Obviously, you know, you were really sick for years, and now in the end you feel better, and you've got a really awesome gym to train at, and you live in a paradise. But you know, you battled this illness for years. It was to do with your esophagus. Tell us, you know, how did you decide that it was time to return? Did the doctor give you an all clear, or did you just feel that your body was ready?
Yeah, I went to Cedars-Sinai in Beverly Hills. It's an amazing doctor, and they finally diagnosed exactly what was wrong and gave me the medicine I needed to fix it. And so I fixed the problem as far as my health quite a while back, and then it was just a process of getting off the medicines and functioning on my own and healing up all the nagging injuries and just giving my body a break and just getting through training, not fight camp training, but just helping train other guys. And it was the break I needed, and my body just got completely rejuvenated. It feels great, along with my health. Obviously, I've weaned myself off the medicine, so I'm walking around at 195 pounds and eating good, and I don't have that stress and burden of the medical illness and pressure and all that. So it's just great. And now I have a chance to come back and fight healthy. And this fight's for me. You know, this fight's to go out there and have fun and just enjoy the opportunity and leave it all out there. It's not about gaining a title shot or keeping a rank or a paycheck or anything like that. It's to go out there, given this opportunity, given this chance to go back in there and go out there and have fun and enjoy what I spent my whole life getting to, the UFC. You know, go out there and actually enjoy it and have fun and fight and leave everything out there.
Absolutely. And it's going to be exciting to see you do that, Mike, because obviously a lot of fighters sometimes lose their passion for the sport and just find themselves doing it for alternative reasons. Now, I remember you did make that brief comeback, like you mentioned, for the Fox fights. And initially you felt better. You mentioned that your health was better, and that's why you decided to return. Compare your body now to back then when you first made that initial comeback. What's the big difference there?
There's no comparison. I mean, I had situations where so I was on medication at that time, which did help my body, and it actually helped in the beginning, even though I wasn't very big. The problem was when I weaned myself off the medicines during fight camp, it came back. And so I I prematurely announced that my health was great, even though it technically was better because I was relying on these medications. And when I took them out to be able to train proper and get that out of my system and just focus on training, it went back. So now here I am in fight camp getting ready for fights, and then I'm having the same issues. And so I shrunk down, and for both of those fights, I was weighing basically 170 pounds fight day, you know, or weigh-in day.
Wow.
I didn't have to cut any weight, and I was just real depleted. So the first fight was a great ending. You know, the ending was awesome. You know, it was a great knockout or whatever, but the fight itself was horrible. You know, both of those fights, if you look at the actual fight and my performance during those fights, whether I won or not, you know, it wasn't good performances, and I definitely want to fix that. You know, I want to come back and show that wasn't me, and it was me. It
Yeah,
wasn't
for
not
sure.
me. but it was a me that I feel is not here anymore, and I feel like I can go out there and perform better and have a good time and just enjoy the moment.
Yeah. You know, since you being on The Ultimate Fighter, you've obviously had some transitions. You were there as a light heavyweight, and you fought at middleweight, and then eventually down to welterweight. When you spoke to you last time, you mentioned how welterweight was not your natural weight class, and how the only reason why you competed there was because your body was so depleted. Now you say your body's feeling better. Alex Garcia, obviously, though, is a welterweight. So it looks like you're coming back to welterweight. Why is that? Why not middleweight?
I could have fought middleweight for this fight. I'm choosing to fight welterweight because I'm training really hard, and I know I'm gonna lose a little bit of weight during this fight camp. The emphasis is going to be on cardio and conditioning for this. You know, a big reason being that I am fighting a guy like Alex Garcia. I think that's part of our strategy to make sure that I'm in ridiculous shape to where I can keep a fast, high pressure fight right from the start and make that last throughout the entire fight if need be. So I'm gonna drop a little bit of weight because of the camp and the training that I'm doing here. So it's just gonna be a bigger cut, and I'll be a bigger fighter versus just fighting kind of at my weight and being a middleweight and being small. But yeah, I'm definitely not going to be the same size as these last two fights. I'm a lot bigger now.
Certainly right. Now, obviously, it's been a while since you've stepped in the cage. We imagine that training must be exciting to get back into training camp. Tell us, how are you going to combat the dreaded ring rust that fighters have to deal with after being away from the cage for so long?
You know, we train hard and I spar hard, so it's like fighting, and I've never really had to deal with it. I don't attribute the DeMarcus fight performance to ring rust. I felt fine. As far as that goes, it was just the body not being able to do what I wanted it to at the level. It wasn't fast enough. It wasn't strong enough. That was the issue. My head's always been pretty clear for fights, so I'm not saying there won't be ring rust. There's no way to know until you get out there. But the confidence is definitely there that I haven't had in a long time because of my medical situation. So there's going to be a lot going into this fight that I haven't had in a long time, and I think that will hopefully even out any ring rust or fight stress that I might have.
Yeah, I think it's something about AKA guys. We never seem to see any ring rust in any of the AKA crew. You know, hey, seeing as you'll be staying at welterweight and your last loss came to Matt Brown, this leaves an opportunity for a rematch. You mentioned to us last time how obviously you didn't feel ready for that fight. You shouldn't have returned. Would you be interested in a rematch with Brown and you know, to show your true potential? Yeah,
definitely. Definitely, man. You know, sorry, I was by here.
That's all right.
Yeah, definitely. I'm at the gym right now, so there's people coming up, and so I was trying to let them know I was on an interview.
Sure.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I would definitely like to rematch all my losses except Okami. He's too big. But
yeah.
And he's a wrestler. I don't want to get grappled again. But no, I would definitely like to get rematches with all those guys. I mean, Dan Hardy, Matt Brown. I mean, those will always be an interest. You know, if the opportunity comes. Right now, I'm focused on this fight. You know, I'm focused on this fight camp and going out there and performing and just having a great fight on July 11th.
Yeah, certainly a rematch against any of those would be very exciting. Now, obviously, it's been a while since you fought, and the welterweight division is certainly not the same as it once was. GSP is now gone, and it looks like the title may move around quite a bit. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the welterweight division, Mike. What do you think about it currently?
Man, it's a great division. It's one of the best in the sport. Again, that's one thing that's great about this fight is there's no pressure and there's no stress of ranking or title shots or any of that. I'm going out there to have fun and have a great fight and leave it all out there. So I'm not concerned with rematches. I'm not concerned with title shots or anything like that. This is literally just about this fight and Alex Garcia and go out there and see what I can do and how it goes. So I don't want to focus on anything else at this time.
Sure. You know, speaking of the division and what sort of Dennis touched on with the sport evolving and the division evolving, you know, when you were there, obviously GSP was the champion, and now you got guys like Tyron Woodley and Kelvin Gastelum and, you know, Carlos Condor's really come up. You know, with all that happening and you being a fighter for pretty much most of your life, was it hard for you to be on the sidelines for so long and not be able to be part of that action? Oh, definitely. I mean, you always want to fight. What kind of eased that, especially in the beginning as I was pursuing this project, was the performances I had at UFC on Fox 4 and 5. I mean, it was clear that at that time, under those conditions, that I should be done fighting, and I accepted that. And
And I always knew there was a chance something could happen and I could turn this around and get myself back again. But I definitely at that time accepted that was going to be it, and that I could walk away and not have any regrets, and just move on if that's the case, if that's the thing that I had to do. And like I said, it wasn't predicted, but it was just, amazing that things worked out the way they did. And over this last year and a half, I've really been able to regain my health, and my body's gotten so much better, and it's just kind of worked out for this reason. So, I'm very gratified that I have this opportunity and I can come back and have a fight now.
Certainly. Now, Mike, you're a part of a very, very special group, the original Ultimate Fighter cast. And I mean, there's always a soft spot in most MMA fans' hearts for most of the guys from Tough. I would just want to get your opinion on one of the members of Tough, Josh Koscheck. Now, he's had a bit of a rough run lately. There's been a string of losses. And just wanted to get your opinion. Have you had a chance to watch any of Josh's fights? And what do you think about Josh continuing to fight? Do you think maybe it might be time for him to call it a day?
I think it's up to him. I mean, he definitely brought the fight to Eric Silva and was going out there to fight. He pushed the pace a lot more than the previous fight. It's up to him. I mean, it's hard for me to judge people and say what they should do. So, I wish the best for him, and hopefully he makes the right decision regardless.
Yeah, for sure. While we're on the topic of Ultimate Fighter 1, we had Chris Lieben on the show actually last week, and we spoke about Chuck Mindenhall's great article on Jason Thacker's life after the show. Just wondering if you got a chance to read it, and what did you think of the turmoil that he's had to deal with in the aftermath of the show?
Yeah, I just got a chance to read it. It's crazy, yeah. Very good article, and it caught me by surprise. I had no idea. Most of everything in that article, I had no idea. It's crazy. I definitely wish the best for him, and I had no idea that the show affected him in that way, and he was being treated like that. So I see that they're doing like an account to raise money for him, and people are really getting behind him. I think that's great. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it was a GoFundMe, and I believe they closed it. It was $13,000. They raised everything they needed. I believe Chuck Mindenhall was the one who opened it. With that article, I think a lot of people, it really blew people's minds. Obviously, most of us fans, we weren't in the Ultimate Fighter house, but you were. When you read that, did you get any of that kind of impression when you were in the house with him? Did you get that vibe from Jason Thacker at all?
I don't know. I mean, there's obviously things that you can tell he wasn't a high caliber fighter, obviously, but we didn't know why he was on there. I mean, maybe there's a lot of unknowns. Everyone was there. Everyone was trying to get a contract in the UFC and be the best fighter they could. That was the number one priority for everyone. On the side, we dabbled in each other's lives and tried to figure each other out. But he was a pretty closed book. We didn't expect that he was going to be a high level from obviously the training, but we didn't know what brought him there and what his story was, and
Yeah, no, certainly right. It was very, very big part of MMA history for all the fans, and it was so much fun watching it back in the day. Now, let's go forward to your opponent, Alex Garcia. He's definitely a tough dude. He fights out of TriStar. He's had a couple of wins in the UFC so far. What do you see as your biggest advantage over him in this matchup, Mike?
I think speed is going to be my main advantage over him, as well as my reach, and then athleticism in this fight. I think the conditioning and cardio to be able to push that high level pace right from the start. I think that's going to be the advantage.
Before we do the Submission Radio Tap-Out round with you, Mike, which is, of course, a staple of all interviews, I just want to get an update. As far as this gym, we've been talking about it throughout the whole interview. Like you said, it's like training in any other gym, but like in paradise. Any new updates on it? And also, who are some fighters that we need to keep our eye on in the future, especially possibly fighting down here in Australia?
Yeah, we have Soa Palili is our team captain, UFC fighter from Australia. He lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And then we have Wan Zai, Chinese fighter, who's also in the UFC. We have Jeff Wang, who's a ONE FC fighter. A lot of guys that are up and coming. A lot of guys. There's so much talent coming through here. All these guys from all over this region. We got guys from Australia and England, Tajikistan, Dagestan, Chechnya, France, all over, and they bring so much talent in their respective fields, and it's great. It's great having that mesh of all these great guys training together and feeding off each other and improving each other's game.
Now, Mike, we're going to do what Casper just mentioned. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. You've done it with us a few times. We throw a bunch of fun questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind. It's been voted as the best ever segment that's ever been done in MMA radio ever. So
all true.
You should, and those there's no need to reference where that came from. So we're going to kick it off for you, Mike. Give us your favorite Thai meal to grab when out in the restaurants in Phuket.
My favorite Thai meal?
Yeah.
Cashew chicken. At the Contender Cafe on the side of AK Thailand.
oh, wow. There you go. What a plug.
It really is, though. I mean, cashew chicken is amazing here.
And you're lucky that your favorite place to eat is right next to your gym.
What a coincidence, huh?
It's almost like you might own it or something, do you?
Crazy. It's crazy. But it honestly is great food. Anyone that comes here, I promise you guys come through here, and I will give you the best meal that you've ever had in Thailand.
We'll be on your doorstep tomorrow, Mike, so careful when you invite us. Mike,
all right, man.
Obviously, you're in paradise. What's your favorite thing to do when with your teammates to relax in Thailand?
Honestly, just chilling on the beach. We'll take boats out to an island. There's a lot of islands right off the coast of Phuket, so we can take the boats to any number of islands and just chill. There's like good snorkeling and diving, and it's just nice to get away and to have that peace, not cars, not planes, not people, just water and rocks and beach. So I think that's one of the most relaxing things that we do when we can.
Now, Mike, you have to give us the lowdown. We were talking to Soa Paleli, and he's told us a couple of times that because of the humidity in Thailand, it's easy to cut weight. Is there any truth to that?
I haven't cut weight here. It is hot. I would think... Yeah, I think you're sweating more on a daily basis, but I don't know. And I mean, if you're in a sauna anyway, it definitely isn't as hot as a sauna. So, but definitely in your overall workout, you're probably cutting more weight. Yes, I would say that's true.
Yeah, I feel like you'd be like halfway to a sauna there with the humidity. Mike, tell the listeners, what is this Songkran War, and isn't it true you guys got hit pretty good for most of it from what we've seen?
Yeah, so Songkran is a festival here in Thailand that happens annually, and during the Songkran, every single person in the entire country has a water fight. So if you walk outside, you are going to get bombarded from water guns, water cannons, bits of water, bottles of water, virtually anything. You're going to get drenched. So the whole world knows, or well, not the whole world, but everyone here in Thailand knows. So when you're here, it's a good idea to stay inside or just go outside and enjoy the festivities. And that's what we did. We went out and kind of enjoyed the festivities. And this year, instead of getting bombarded and killed everywhere we go, we decided to take the truck with windows and try to be a little more strategic and not get as soaked.
Yeah, well, we were watching the videos, and guys, you have to check them out. They're on the AK Thailand YouTube page. Some great stuff there. And you guys were doing a few sneaky drive-bys there. There were a few of cheap shots, if we may say so ourselves. Tell us, what was the funniest situation that you guys got someone good during the big war?
Yeah, we had so much footage. I mean, we did that for like a couple hours between training sessions. So we nailed so many people doing drive-bys with our water guns. But it was hard to figure out which ones we should keep in the video or not. But yeah, I mean, we played dirty. We were the bad guys. I'll admit it. But it was fun and it was entertaining. I mean, you'll watch a lot of Songkran videos where like it's boring and like they go out and they just shoot each other. It's like so much better when you're driving around in a truck playing dirty.
That's awesome. Taking it to the next level. Mike, tell us about this thug monkey that robbed you of your water.
Yeah, so not too far from AK Thailand, there's this big hill that goes into the jungle, and there's hundreds and hundreds of monkeys everywhere. So when you drive up there and you get out, you're just surrounded by wild monkeys. Wow. And we were just hanging out, and they kept trying to get my water, so I was going to give him a little water. And as I was giving him water, he got greedy, decided to take a swing at me. And, you know, I luckily moved out of the way, and he didn't get much. And then he grabbed my bottle and thug-lifed me. It was epic. It was epic that he picked the bottle up and was drinking the water as he was running away. I don't know how that panned out that way, but it was hilarious. It was hilarious at the time. I didn't even know we had it on video. And it was definitely funny in the video, obviously, as you've seen the views.
Yeah, that monkey's like from straight out of Compton or something. Now, we're going to ask for a few predictions from you, Mike. So we want your honest opinion. The first one, Khabib versus Cowboy Cerrone. Who wins that one?
Are you serious?
Well, we
Khabib is
have to
my
ask.
boy, and he is awesome. He's gonna win that fight, and then he's gonna beat Dos Anjos again, and he's gonna be the champion in 2015.
There you go. Heard it here first. You tweeted out, it's hard to go against Jose Aldo, but Conor McGregor, or at Notorious MMA, keeps saying he's going to do it. Hard not to believe the guy. Hashtag going to be good. Hashtag UFC Rio. What's your prediction for the fight?
Jose Aldo McGregor. Well, here's the thing. Jose Aldo is one of my favorite fighters. I love his style. I train with those guys down in Brazil, and the whole team. We got Marlon Sandro coming here in a couple of weeks with Leo Santos. It's a great team, and I think he's my favorite to win. But if Conor McGregor can do it, hats off to him. And I definitely am a big fan of Conor McGregor as well. He does the talk and he builds the hype, but he is a good fighter. And I've grown to definitely become a fan of his from his fighting style. So I think overall I give the edge to Jose Aldo just because of his experience and his style. But Conor McGregor has been on a tear, and he's destroying everyone. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did do it. So I'm just looking forward to the fight. My fight will be out of the way. I'm going to be hopefully clear for the back, and I'm going to be out there sitting there with everybody else watching that fight.
Nice.
Oh, man, that's going to be an awesome moment. Now, finally, the most important prediction, Mike. Give us your official prediction. How will you beat Alex Garcia at UFC 189?
Oh, man, by knockout. That's how I predict every fight.
We have to. What round? First round? Second round?
First round.
First round
knockout. That's what I go for. So that's what I hope to happen, and that's what my style is going to be geared towards. So, yeah, let's hope that happens. that's the goal.
Well, you've said it now. It has to happen. Hopefully, UFC 189, July 11th, I believe here, because of the time difference in Australia, will be July 12th. Vintage Mike Quick Swick will be returning. Don't forget to follow Mike on Twitter at @officialswick. And, of course, make sure to travel and check out AK Thailand at akthailand.com or at AK Thailand. Mike, as always, pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Sorry it was a little distracting here at the gym, but I appreciate you guys having me on, man, and I love your show.
This is Jake Ellenberger, and you guys are listening to Submission Radio.
And there you guys go, Mike Swick from Thailand. Every time we speak to Mike Swick, I'm like, all right, it's time for me and Cass to take another vacation over to Thailand. It has to be done. We'll do some on-the-spot journalism for AKA Thailand, AKA actually go out there and just lay out on the beach near the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly take a couple of photos on our camera phone and be like, hey, we're just doing our job, covering the gym for the people. But yeah, Mike, just a great guy. And Cass, we've had him on the show quite a bit, and this is by far the most fired up he sounded. He really does sound like everything's different with him, like he's 100% better, and I'm excited to see the difference when he makes his return in the UFC.
For sure. Obviously, the last two or three times, I can't remember now, that we've had Mike Swick on the show, obviously he was in between that break and he didn't have any fights lined up. And I think he sounded like, a little bit more quiet, but you could hear how much more alive he was in his voice. I think he's just really excited to make his return. Like we said, we've got Bas Rutten coming up next. We did do the pre-record yesterday with Bas. Again, apologies for the audio issues. My microphone disconnected. It's not the greatest sound on my end. Bas, of course, though, joined us by Skype. So on the plus side, Bas sounds really, really good. Sounds like a bunch of guys just sitting around a bar trading war stories. Mainly Bas, not our stories. Really, really, really interesting interview. I believe it's going to be going for, I don't even know how long it's going for, but it's a really, really good one. Definitely check it out. Just one more thing, wanted to mention, we really appreciate all the love we get on YouTube. If you guys feel like it, jump on Stitcher or iTunes or even TuneIn, give us a rating. I know that with iTunes we don't have as many at the moment, and obviously the more ratings, the more 5-star ratings we do get, the higher the show raises in the iTunes rankings, and that's something we love. So if you do feel like it, if you can be bothered, if you think we're worthy of it, jump on iTunes or TuneIn or Stitcher, give us a rating. You can give us a feedback or comment or whatever you want. We'd really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's something that we love. We love interaction from the fans. So if you have a moment, jump on. We really appreciate it. And Kaz, I feel like we live vicariously through Bas and his stories. He said so many great ones to us. I'm really excited for this interview. And of course, guys, after Bas, we do have Chad Mendes. I believe we're one of the first people to interview him after his last fight. He took a bit of a vacay to New Zealand, Kaz, a place that you and me know very, very well, almost like a second home to us. So I'm excited to find out exactly what he did there as well. So lots of stuff still coming up in the show.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we were speaking about vacations to Thailand. New Zealand was actually my last vacation. Last year was an awesome week of snowboarding. I'm sure you guys saw it on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get to this interview. It's us, Submission Radio versus Bas Rutten. Enjoy, guys. All right, guys. Our next guest is a friend of the program, one of our favorite guests to have on. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion. He's a former pancrase legend, a legend and an icon in the sport, and one of the most colorful personalities. He's none other than El Guapo, Bas Rutten. Bas, welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you?
You're doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're always good, Bas, and always a little bit better when you're on. Just to get straight into it, Bas, we spoke last time in December, and we discussed your O2 trainer. Now, recently, that's your device that you basically invented, for anyone who doesn't know. Recently, you had an exchange with a man named David who was going through some health issues, and you posted the story on your website. But for anyone who didn't see that, can you tell the listeners what happened?
Yeah, he contacted me in September, and he said he had incurable lung disease, and if an O2 trainer would help. I said, well, you can train anything, and since the lungs and the muscles around the lungs, those are the ones that really breathe for you. Well, you can train, and if you make them stronger, then your lungs, of course, will work. So I said, contact me. I'll send you an O2 trainer. The only thing I would like to have from you is, let me know how it goes. And out of the blue, I totally forgot about him. And 6 months later, I got an email, and he goes, man, his lung function, everything improved 50%.
Wow.
I mean, he went from like 4 to a 6. And I go, man, please see if you can get me some tests that you have, because he did those breathing tests. And he found an old one. He said, but they were all the same. And then he found a new one. So that was the comparison. And his doctor was amazed, that it helped so much. So, it's a good thing for me to hear those things, because now I really realize it does a lot of good for a lot of people. I have also another friend, Ron Kroc from the Inside MMA. Mm-hmm. His wife has breathing troubles. And I sent her an O2 trainer last week. And I say, if you do what I say, with the breathing exercise, I guarantee you this is going to help you. So let's see where that story is going to go.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll stay on top of that one, Bas. And guys, the O2 trainer, if you're listening, it's a great device. Make sure you check it out. We'll give some information at the end of the interview how you can pick one up. Now, Bas, the other big thing is Paul Blart Mall Cop. That movie is out. You've got a small part in the movie. Just wanted to get your experience of shooting it. Did you have any fun experiences making the movie? And how do you think the whole thing turned out?
I think it's everything he does, that Kevin does, playing that whole Blart's persona that he does, he cannot turn it off if he's in the movie. So it's hilarious. Outside also, it is always fun. I mean, meeting David Henry and his brother, like the kid stars from Disney, they're now in it as well, and they're all great guys, man. We had so much fun. It's everything, he also invites all his... he always finds parts for his old stand-up buddies,
mm-hmm.
So once you put like 8 or 10 stand-up comedians together, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Definitely check that out, guys. Now, Bas, one of your former opponents, Ken Shamrock, is back in the headlines. He's got his big fight with Kimbo in Bellator. It's funny because you've got Ken being your former opponent and Kimbo, a guy that you formerly trained. What did you think when you heard about this fight?
I thought it was great because, they were supposed to fight a while ago at the Elite XC, and that didn't happen. So, they always wanted to fight, and it would be a cool fight. I don't know, Kimbo, I hope he's okay with his knees because he had some knee troubles at the time. When I was training him, he started slowly but surely, he got more and more. But God knows they fixed it. And then he can be going full on strong again. So, and for Ken, I don't know why Ken is still fighting. He loves it so much, he said. And I would love it also, but I mean, we're getting up there in age now, but it's something that he simply can't let go, and he doesn't care. He wants to do anything, like bare knuckle fighting.
Yeah.
The guy was just a born fighter. That's what he likes to do, and that's how he wants to stop. So all the power to him.
Oh, yeah, and we had him on the show a few weeks back. He's like driving around in a motorhome, training out of that. The guy's just enjoying life as it is at the moment, so it's great to see. We had a few fans send in this question, Bas, so we thought we'd ask you. A lot of fans are wondering, how come you and Kimbo parted ways? Because you did train him there for a while. Was it just sort of an amicable parting?
It was. He got the injury here and there, and you know what? He's never been to used to it, a professional. Like, you know, if I say 10 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock with me. I'll probably be there 5 minutes before 10 or even sooner. You know, I'll be never too late to a thing. And, you know, we had injuries here, injuries there. So slowly but surely, you know, showing up late here, showing up late there, you know. And then I told him, I say, you know, we can't do this like this. You know, you know, if you want to train with me, my time is so valuable. I already had to split myself with a good friend of mine, Randy Katami, and I told him, I said, man, if you can take him in the afternoon because he's a boxing coach, you know, and you do the focus mitts, all the conditioning with him, then I'll do all the groundwork and you know, the complete MMA with him. And so for me to schedule things at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, it's hard for me to schedule 2 classes a week, what I'm doing here at my gym. And that's at 6 o'clock p.m. So, you know, if I suddenly add like 5 or 6 workouts, you know, I really need to plan that. And that was kind of the thing, you know, for me it was. And then he had that big fight and at the end. So I said, you know, and he had his injuries anyway. So why would we, you know, I knew he couldn't do MMA anymore. He was going to focus more on boxing.
Knowing what you know about both guys, who do you think takes it, Kimbo or Ken?
You know, that's a hard question for me, and a question that will tear me up a little bit, because the thing is this, you know, Ken is, you know, he's been fighting for such a long time, you know, and on one side I say, I like Ken to win this fight. It will be really great for him. On the other side, I never had, with my new submission, improved submission skills, had the time anymore to fight with Ken.
Yeah.
So, but I did, of course, a lot of training with Kimbo, and since I'm always thought that I'm even better in fighting than when I'm in training, you know, then on the other side thinks, for me, the dark side thinks, you know, if Kimbo wins, then I kind of know that I would have beaten him, you know. But you know, you can never think like that either, you know. A fight is always different for other people. Some people, you know, styles make fights. We know this by now. You know, sometimes you got 2 guys who, you know, they're like number 15 ranked on the planet, and so they have a brawl and it becomes fight of the year. So styles definitely make matches. So, but it would be in my mind, I would go like, okay, then I have a little bit of peace. It's still a black page in my history, and that's with Ken, because, you know, I wanted to fight him when he came to Pride, and then he said, no, we already did that twice, and we don't need to do it again. So because I told the fight people I will come out of retirement for him, you know, if you want. So well, it's always good, and on the other side it's good, because Ken and I always been going along very well.
Yeah, certainly. Now we've actually included a few fan questions in this interview because, Bas, as you know, you're a big fan favorite in the MMA community. Since we're on the subject of Ken, Roy would like to know, who do you think wins in their prime between Ken Shamrock and Frank Shamrock? Obviously, you fought them both. It's a tough question, but who do you think would win between those two?
Yeah, that's indeed a real question. I think if they would wait a little bit closer together and both in their prime, I think that Frank started to understand sooner than anybody else that stamina was a very important thing also. And I think, you know, Frank, with his stamina and constantly pressing the fight, he could have pulled that one off. But, you know, they're both different weight classes. Frank is 185. Again, 220. I don't know what he is right now, but, you know, so they had to both meet at a weight that it's, you know, for both guys good. But yeah, I would think at the end, both in their prime, you know, Frank being the 5-time UFC champion, a lot of people don't realize that, you know, then I would slight favor Frank maybe, yeah.
Frank, all right, Frank gets the edge. Now, while we're on the topic of some of these questions, you know, this is another one. It's a guy that you know fairly well. We spoke about him. You know, last time when we spoke to you in December, you were predicting what happens between Nick Diaz and Anderson Silva. We've asked this pretty much all of our guests, something that no one expected, obviously, Anderson Silva to test for steroids afterwards. You just want to get your thoughts on that, and do you think that it hurts Anderson's legacy in any way, or do you think he's done enough in the sport for it not to hurt his legacy?
No, it will hurt his legacy. Listen, or he fights 3 more fights at least, and he makes sure that he gets tested every week. People come by, and you know, that's what I would do as a fighter, to make sure that people know I'm absolutely clean, you know, and then fight those 3 more fights, fight them well. That's also a thing that he needs to do, because otherwise people can say, you see, in the past, because this is the big conspiracy theory, right? And it's all over the internet. It's not really thinking, but you people automatically assume, they say, okay, but if he would have looked different this time, like he would have packed more muscle and everything than everybody could have said, but he looked the same as he always looked. You know, and that's what the people now are going to say. They say, wait a minute, yeah, but he looked exactly the same as he always looked, so maybe in the past, you know, and then those questions come up. And it's a shame, because God knows he never did anything, you know, but that's just how it goes, man. People always gravitate towards the negativity, and whenever something is negative, then they'll jump on that and they forget all the good that he did.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, obviously a lot of people have sort of said it's the leg. He broke the leg and he needed it to recover. And a lot of fans and a lot of fighters that we've had on the show have said, look, I understand from the standpoint of him using it to make his leg better, but he should have taken some time off. Do you think that gives him any leeway there, Bas, in the whole situation?
Well, also, that was the other thing. He denied it. He denied it for 2 weeks. I was on the show and they said he was caught. I say he probably did that to recoup from his leg faster. I always said, with my stance on steroids, that I'm heavy against it, but I always say this: if the doctor tells you, listen, you're going to be out for a year, but if you take some steroids, you know, I can probably get you fighting again in half a year. Now, since it's your profession, I say do it. Take the steroids, do it. Just make sure it's out of your system. But with Anderson, he's denied it for like 2 weeks. Absolutely not. And then suddenly changed the story and he said, yeah, but I was to recoup from my leg injury. So if he would have right away said that day, he said, yeah, I got it from the doctor because, you know, it would make me heal faster. You see, then that other story wouldn't have been out there, that he was denying it and denying it.
Yeah. Another thing that we wanted to bring up, you know, Joe Rogan, around the time that Anderson Silva was, you know, popped for steroids, Joe Rogan was talking about Pride and, you know, the drug testing there, and he mentioned about Fedor, and one of the things he said is there's a high possibility that Fedor would have been on steroids. I think once Anderson popped, everyone sort of jumped on everybody else's records, looked at everybody who was successful, and thought, you know what, these guys all might be taking steroids. I'm just wondering what you thought about what Joe Rogan said in regards to Fedor.
Yeah, well, you can. In my book, you can never say that until somebody gets popped, and it's 100% certain. I would never touch that. It's just a still thing. I have guys who fought me and who said to people, "Oh, he's got to be on steroids because I was on steroids when I fought him, and he was stronger than I am." You know, that's called genetics, dude. You know, and if you really want to piss me off, then you say, "Oh yeah, you used as well," because these dumb knuckleheads, they go like, "Oh yeah, the boss says he never used. Everybody's using." It's not true. I'm not using. Throw me on a lie detector test. I'll pass any lie detector test 100% sure. In my whole career, and I always say this because right now for my neck, you know, and that is, well, my last fight was in 2006. This is 9 years ago. Now for my neck, yes, I'm taking TRT. I'm trying, you know, to respark everything because I lost a lot of muscle in my arms. You know, and finally I start regaining a little tiny bit day by day. But during my whole fighting career, absolutely none. And I always say, if I can do it without, anybody can do it without. It's not just me. I'm nothing special, man. I'm a human being, same as anybody else.
Yeah, certainly right. And, you know, I guess the whole situation happened, Bas, because a lot of people have been taking knocks at Pride and Pride fighters, guys like Chal and other guys saying, oh, there was no drug testing and guys are just taking steroids. And with the whole, all the tests going positive, everybody's always questioning everything. Just wondering, you know, in Pride, were there some sort of drug testing? Because Fedor came out and said, hey, I was drug tested before fights.
Yeah.
Was there drug testing back in Pride?
Well, there's a fun clip, and I was talking about it last week because I did something funny. It was in Japan. They asked me, they wanted to do the Boss Tour. And the Boss Tour was me with a camera going backstage and then going to the dressing rooms with the fighters, interview them, and show the people at home, oh, this is where they warm up, this is where they do this is where they do that. And then I walked into the room from the doctors. And as soon as I walk into the room from the doctors, I look to the right and I see all these little tiny cups there. They're all the P tests are there, right? I know they've been testing. So right away, I turn around and I tell the camera crew, I say, give me 1 second. Let me talk to the people here, to the doctors, if it's okay for you guys to come in. So I close the door. Right away, I grab another cup. I see green tea. I put green tea in the cup, and I put that cup next to all the other P tests. And I put a lid on it because they all had a lid on it and a name, right? So And then I open the door and I say, yeah, the doctor said it's okay. We can come in. And I show these people everything. And suddenly I say, oh my God, look at that. These are the pee tests from tonight. I said, man, wouldn't it be great, if you could taste what fighter is whose, And these people, they look at me like, what is he going to do? So I take a cup then with the green tea. And I said, let's try it out. So I smell it. I say, it's got to be an American fighter. That's, and then I took a drink. And when I swallow it, people start freaking out. I go, it's Mark Coleman. I think it's Mark Coleman. It was so hilarious. But just because I did that, I know for a fact that they were testing because I saw like 20 or 30 cups standing there.
That is hilarious. Somewhere over there, Lyoto Machida was watching this and nodding in approval.
Yeah, but that was not the morning pee, boss.
Oh, of course. No, it didn't count then. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, well, while we're on the topic of fun subjects, a fighter who's really building his legacy is Conor McGregor. I'm just wondering, did you get a chance to watch this crazy UFC 189 World Tour, the Embeddeds? And what are your thoughts on Conor McGregor and the whole intense rivalry?
I love this guy, man. Listen, and everybody knows Jose Aldo has been my favorite fighter all the time, and I thought McGregor will have no chance against Jose a couple of fights ago, and now the way he's taken to people and his weird style and his stamina and his confidence, and I really start to think now, wow, this guy is really good. On top of the talk, he's not just a talker. This guy can actually fight, and he's believes in himself 100% also. And for a fighter, that is such a powerful thing to have, in your mind. If you can't lose, it's what he says. They're literally going to have to pretty much kill this guy in order to quit, because otherwise he won't quit. And trust me, Aldo knows this also. Now Aldo is very angry as well, because I saw him walking around with his rosary, but the language that came out of his mouth was the opposite. I'm going to cut his head off. I'm going to do this. But, the fact that he takes the belt, the way he did that, puts his feet on the table, and then Aldo puts the feet on the table, and then right away used that momentum. It's like a setup. He was baiting him, and then he grabbed the belt, and the whole audience went nuts. I wish I would have been there, man. I think it's hilarious. I think that's going to be one of the biggest pay-per-views ever. I truly believe so. I think it's especially first time that a lighter weight class is going to get... this could go over 1 million pay-per-view wise. I truly believe this.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge, huge event. I mean, there's 2 title fights on there, but we have to ask you said Jose is your favorite fighter. What's your prediction for the fight? Do you think he still beats Conor McGregor?
Yeah, I don't know about that anymore. The thing was this. Like, if he would have done 3 fights ago, I would say maybe Conor's going to get it now. And the sole reason for that is because Aldo is an extremely explosive fighter, and the only downside that he had was stamina in the past. But now, the last few fights, when he went 5 rounds, he's still strong in the 5th round. So he definitely worked on his stamina department, and is a very scary fighter. Also, you better believe there's a picture of Conor McGregor on his mirror every morning when he wakes up.
Yeah.
Like a Rocky style thing, and he's going to crunch that picture, and he's going to train really hard. On the other side, there's a guy that really wants it, and he's got to now back up everything he said. The whole country is behind him. It's going to be a lot of pressure. Who can deal with the pressure the most? And to me, like McGregor seems to deal very good with pressure. Aldo, if he's too angry, he can overcommit to strikes. Maybe he's going to make a mistake in there. It's a close fight, man. It's going to be a very close fight. And on one side, I think it's going to be a knockout. On the other side, I think it probably will go 5 rounds. But I have no clue. This is like really split down the middle.
You're not alone. I think most people are like that as well with their prediction for this fight. Everyone just wants it to happen already so they can see what happens. Your fellow Pride veteran, Mirko Cro Cop, recently returned to the UFC and met Gabriel Gonzaga in Poland. He basically demolished Gonzaga's face. Beautiful elbows. What did you think about Cro Cop's return, and did it make you happy being a former Pride guy?
Yeah, no, I always been a huge Cro Cop fan. We had always had a fun connection. Like I was the only guy in Pride who was allowed to interview him. He didn't want anybody else to interview him. So we always had this thing, but he's a funny guy too. Like you saw the thing I did with Mauro Ranallo, with Cro Cop, where we we're making fun of it. So you can tell he's a really funny guy as well. And I really enjoyed him coming back and win a fight like this, especially after what happened to him the first time they met. This was a great victory for him.
Yeah, well, your 22 fight undefeated streak began with a heel hook, Bass. What did you think when you saw Crow Cop attempt a heel hook on Gonzaga?
It was the craziest thing ever, you know. But then again, you know, in Japan, he pulled off a straight armbar, I believe, you know, in the
Wow.
three fights that he had in Japan. So, you know, he's one of those guys who was exactly the same as me, who said, okay, or I'm going to learn the ground game, or that's going to be my Achilles heel, and I'm going to lose on him. You know, and although he had a really good takedown defense, he always had it in Pride as well. You never know, man. People say, oh, it's you know, when they say you don't need ground fighting because the street fight always starts on the street. And my answer is very simple. I say, what if you walk backwards and you trip over something, you're on your back? Now you suddenly wish that you could have been a ground fighter, right? So always prepare for the unexpected, you know. It's always what they say, you know, you can prepare yourself for 1,000 scenarios, but on the street, scenario 1,001 suddenly pops up. Oh, I didn't do that one yet. You know,
Yeah.
and you got to be ready for it. So yeah, he has to know it all. He knows it, and this is a good thing to see.
Now, we've always respected your analysis of fighters, Bas. You know, do you think Crow Cop can still be competitive amongst the elite in today's UFC heavyweight division?
Well, it's a hard one. I always kind of wondered why he didn't try to go to 205. That would be a great weight class for him. I know he's really cut, but I still think that because he was never a heavyweight, you know, that will be a good thing for him because he will be even faster then. But on the other side, maybe he has to drain too much. He's going to be weaker. I don't know about that, but you know, age. It's all about age. I'm telling you, if my knees wouldn't have been there and my neck, I don't know. I maybe I would have been the same as Ken, you know, because my last fight, I got to tell you, man, I felt really good. I was in phenomenal shape. It was just that everything was hurting, you know. But I mean, for the rest, I felt like $1,000,000. I felt like as I did at my last fight, so actually better,
Wow.
you know. So yeah, I think if you keep the explosiveness, and I think he will keep that. You know, and it doesn't slow down in the head. He should keep on fighting. But once you see things like, you know, you see with some fighters, I don't want to mention names, you see some fighters that they suddenly don't see punches coming anymore. They stand in the ring, they get hit, and then you see them react to the hit. And then I say, you shouldn't fight anymore. And then they say, but I want one more fight. I go, and I always take them to the side and say, don't do this anymore, you know. It's not you. You're going to get hurt, you know, for the rest of your life. That's not going to be a good thing. You want to see your kids grow up, you know. And but I don't think Crow Cop has that yet. I think maybe he's revamping himself now with the heel hook attempt and then the straight armbar victory and now another stoppage. So God knows. We'll see. We'll see in the future.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, it's interesting that you say that, Bass, because there's a few fighters in the UFC division that are sort of in that position where they've had a string of losses. They've been legends in their own right, but they still keep on fighting. Guys like Josh Koscheck and Gray Mannion. Obviously, Dana White, he's a big fan of the guys because they've done so much for the sport, so he lets them decide when it's time to go. But do you think with guys like that who have had a rough string of losses and are up there in age, there should be some kind of process to sort of, you know, let them retire amicably and not keep sort of scrambling their brains?
They should. They really should step in. You know, it's like what he did with Chuck Liddell. He said, well, I don't want him to fight anymore. You know, it's just not good. And Chuck still, I actually saw him yesterday in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But we went out for an audition, both for the same audition. It was funny.
Oh, no, that's awkward.
He first looked at me, I said, Chuck, and you're like, hey, man. And then he go, oh, it's you, because I have a beard, you know. And I think he recognized me. And then I go, oh, my God. And then we walked into the same casting agency. You know?
Was there one of those things where you both try and fit through the door at the same time and it's really awkward?
No. You know what? I actually told him age before beauty. I literally said that to him, and I let him go in front of me.
You should have told him, oh, it's down that way, and told him to go down like the wrong hallway or something.
I should have done that. I even let him sign in before me. So that's what a gentleman I am. You know what? I'm a huge Chuck Liddell fan.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that if I, and it's not because of me, any good coach, you know, if I could have talked to him for like 3 months and training and 3 months talking, because his problem was only in his mind. His problem is that he likes to knock out people a lot, and if he dazes somebody, you know, he goes in for the kill, and then sometimes he overcommitted because all the losses. Look at the last losses he had, is when he rocks somebody, and then he opens up, and then suddenly he gets hit. And I think if there's a coach who can really talk to him and they say, listen, step down, take a beat. You have a lot of time, man. If you rock somebody, you know, normally that's an 8 count, you know. So you got at least 20 seconds. And 20 seconds is a long time in the cage, in the ring. just step back, relax, and then go back at it. Then you're gonna knock the guy out. I still would have put him up against anybody, even Anderson Silva at the time. When Chuck retired, because Chuck he's something, man. This guy can hit. He's got a great heart, and he's always there to fight, and that's why the people love him.
Yeah, no, that's a great point there, Bas, and absolutely. Well, that would have been amazing to see you work with Chuck. Now, one of the things that we love, obviously, it's a shame that you can't fight, but one of the things that we love about you is when you commentate, and you commentate regularly for the World Series of Fighting. We just want to get a couple of opinions from you on the great organization. Me and Cass have actually really enjoyed some of the shows and really tried to let the Australian fans know about the company down here because it's still quite young here down in Oz. Let's talk about, first off, Justin Gaethje. He's the champion. He's had some really exciting and dominant performances. And now people are saying they want to see him fight guys in the UFC. Do you think he's ready? And how do you think he would do against the top of the top in the UFC?
I think for him right now, he's still early in his career. Just pretty much demolished everybody who had him in front of him. I would do what he's doing right now. Guys that come from also from the UFC when he fought Gillard, and guys like that, and beat more of these guys, and then just get stronger and a little bit less overcommitting. And I'm not saying he cannot beat somebody from the UFC, because I truly believe he can. Because if you saw that last fight with Palomino, I mean, what a bar he said, because now like, okay, if I'm going to fight him, that's what I'm going to face. That's something powerful. a lot of heart, a lot of stamina, and a lot of power, extremely a lot of power. And that's the thing with him. But the only thing I would change with him is, like, don't overcommit too much. He has got so much natural power. He doesn't need to miss and hit like 3 feet next to the head. You need to be a little bit more structured because a really good boxer, is going to try to move angles on him and going to try to pick him apart. Sorry. Whoa. Then again, with his fighting style, pushing the fight, that takes the striking away from pretty much any great boxer. It's very hard while you get pushed backwards to still have the right foot setting to connect with punches. To put your body weight in the punches. Can you hit him with a punch? Yeah, sure, yeah. But can you put your body weight in there? You can only do that if your 2 feet are planted on the ground. That's with hooks and with straight punches. It's got to come from the back leg, the power. If you stand on your front leg, you can't put your body weight in there. You can knock him out, of course you can, but you cannot put your body weight in there. So I'm talking about those things, And so his fighting style is a very hard style to fight. I think he would do very well. If I would give him advice, I would say stay in the World Series of Fighting, also for my pleasure, of course, but also because I want him, to get a little bit more seasoned, and then go in there, then, and then sky's the limit. But preferably, of course, I would like to have him there because then I can commentate on him.
Yeah, of course. Very good advice, and hopefully Justin's listening to the show. One person who disagrees, and you mentioned him before, is Melvin Gillard. We had Melvin on the show about, 2 weeks ago, just before the fight he was supposed to have against Aussie at World Series of Fighting 20. Now, it seems like the wheels have fallen off a little bit for Melvin. I mean, he's working a part-time job at a strip club, and he obviously didn't submit his medicals. He didn't fight at World Series of Fighting 20. What do you think about this mess, and do you think he'll fight again in the company?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he needs to put his life in order. Once you, listen. I love Melvin. He's a great guy, and I really do. But if it was my company and he came overweight again, like y'all did, I would have never let him fight again for the World Series of Fighting. But that's me, because he had too many warnings right now. I think it's super unprofessional not to be in weight. It's the worst thing. Now suddenly the title fight is gonna. Thankfully they were still fighting, but what if the fight goes off? Well, what if it's off? Because he misses weight. He simply can't do that stuff. So he needs to get his life back on track. But working at the strip club, I don't know if that's the greatest thing to do for him right now. That's because there's a lot of distractions there, I guess, right?
Yeah.
It's got to really watch out. He's a super explosive guy. He just needs a lot. A lot of wrestling, and go to just a soul ground game school. Go to Eddie Gracie Academy, AT&T. You need to work a lot on the ground. Killer, if you lost so many fights by way of submission, once it goes to the ground, well, you got to change your game plan. Look at Crow Cup, what he's doing, and he's doing it at age 40, I believe.
Yes, certainly right. But Bas, it sounds like you need the O2 trainer right now.
No, you know what I was eating? I ate quinoa. You know, I eat a lot of that stuff nowadays. And one of these little tiny things is in my throat, and it messes me up. And people say, "Oh, drink water." It's not there. It's in the air pipe.
Quinoa, the silent killer.
That's why I go really loud. I try to cough that thing out, but that might have been it, I think.
Hey.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, Bas. So every time we have you on the show, obviously, as you know, you have so many fans around the world, and that includes Australia. So for me and Casper, it's almost like we've got a data analyst's job, and we have to sift through all these fan questions because we can only fit a few in every time we have you on the program. So here are a few questions that we chose from the fans. The first one comes from Eldano. He goes, Bas, who do you think would win between Ronda Rousey and Chris Cyborg? And what are your thoughts about all this hype around Rousey being able to beat up a man? Do you think it's possible?
No, not yeah. Of course, it's possible. It depends on who it is, you know. And but the man who's the champion in his way in her weight class, the 135. No, I don't think she's good. But you know, once you start talking men and women, there's still a difference. On the street, listen, she cleans everybody up, and everybody out of the top 20. God knows she does it as well. But I'm just saying, pound for pound, you know, the same weight class, you know, and then you. And the champion as well. I don't think. A long time ago, Lucia Rijker had no more opponents. She was the Dutch phenom kickboxing and boxer, undefeated in boxing, undefeated in kickboxing. I mean, 80% or higher knockout rate. It's just nobody wanted to fight her. Even Layla Ali didn't want to fight her. Christy Martin at the time didn't want to fight her. You know, it's just a total animal. And she ran out of opponents, and she said, I want to fight a guy. And then she chose the Lumpini Stadium champion from Thailand, you know. Yeah, you know, she lost that one. You see, and of course, then you go like, yeah, but get a guy out of the top 10 first, you know. Let's warm up to this, you know. Why would you right away go to a champion? So, no, I think it would still be with the guy. But it's just because the differences. That's why guys, you know, look at track and field. You know, tell me one thing in track and field that the women do better. It's just because of the way they're built. I'm not saying this weaker, but it's just the way they're built. It's just the guys jump higher, farther, sprint faster. You know, that it's just genetics, and you know that transforms also in fighting, of course. So yeah, that would be my answer. And between Cyborg and Rousey, Cyborg I would have said a long time ago. Now, you know, with Ronda's getting better in the striking and looking good at that. You know, it's going to be a hard fight. She needs only one clinch. Because if she has the clinch, I think she can take Cyborg to the ground. And once it goes on the ground, well, we know that's going to be a problem for Cyborg. So Cyborg needs to do, if I were her, man, I would go to the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. And I would train there with all the Olympic wrestlers. That's the only thing I would do, non-stop. And do not clinch. Whatever you do not clinch with Rousey because her hip throws, arm throws, all these things are really, really good with her. You can't stop it. You know, even when Cyborg is really strong, I think Rousey is in that same strength level almost. She has that natural strength. You can see the way she's built. You can see her mind. She's in, you know, more people say that now. They're like the female Mike Tyson. She has that whole mindset when she walks to the cage. You know, nobody can distract her. It's a tough cookie to beat, man. She's just very, very tough.
Yeah, I think the only person who's a worthy opponent is Michelle Rodriguez thus far. We'll see if we can get her in the UFC. The real Steve would like to know, Bas, what did you think about Brock Lesnar retiring from MMA officially and staying in the WWE? Was it the right decision?
Yes, it's the right decision. You shouldn't. No, he should not do MMA anymore because you could tell that he didn't enjoy to get a hit. You know. And I'm not saying that a fighter needs to enjoy it to getting hit, but at least they shouldn't be afraid of it. Once you start looking away from punches, that means that something you're doing wrong here. Either in training not going all the way, you know, or they tell their sparring partners that they cannot hit the head. There is something that is then forbidden. You know, you cannot shy away from punches because that doesn't work in mixed martial arts. You have to fix that problem. And we didn't see him fix that over the time. So, then if the heart is not in it, man, if you don't fix it, it's like with me. You know, after I lost my last time, you know, I was so angry with myself. I could not believe that I still couldn't do the ground game. And then I just started doing it 2 or 3 times a day, every day. You know, and then suddenly it started clicking. You know, you work on your weaknesses. That's what you do. And I didn't see that with him. So he's a phenomenal athlete. Don't get me wrong. But, I think it's the right decision for him.
Next question comes from Kimura Kid. He goes, "What are your thoughts on Mark? What were your thoughts on Mark Kerr during his Pride run and the making of the Smashing Machine?" And he's also wondering, have you kept in touch with him, and how is he doing now?
You know, I talked to somebody who spoke to him last month, and he said he was not doing doing so well, and that hurts me because he's a really good guy, man. When you meet him, it's impossible not to like this guy, and you know, but there's the example. Boys and girls, don't do painkillers, don't do all those drugs. You know, and I'm just saying that because Mark Kerr is very open with it. Like in the Smashing Machine, you show him, he shows himself shooting up. So it's not like he says, "Oh, please don't say it," because otherwise I wouldn't have said it, of course. But he brought it out in the open himself, so I can talk about that. And I think it's a good example. And I think that documentary is a good example for other fighters as well. You know, I don't know if you guys have those Vicodins in Australia, all those pills. Do you have that?
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I have no idea, to be honest. I don't even take
know.
Panadol.
I'll go on record and say I don't know.
I'm sure we do. We probably do, yeah.
Finally here in America, you know, they legalized marijuana now in a bunch of states, but you know, so they're a little bit easier on that. Before they didn't want to do it because they don't want you to buy other drugs; they want you to buy their drugs, and their drugs are, well, painkillers. And the painkillers are here in such a way that if you take them for about 2-3 weeks straight, you know, you're gonna have a problem getting off these things. You have to literally, you know, start winding down, which is something you can't do because, you know, as you know, your body learns how to deal with the substance. So 2 pills suddenly are not enough anymore. There need to be 3 pills. As soon 3 becomes 6, and it goes really fast. And then boom, suddenly you're addicted. All the movie stars, name any movie star, even when they do heroin, it started with the pain pills because the painkillers, it's pretty much the same. You go from oxycodone to OxyContin. OxyContin is pharmaceutical heroin. It's exactly the same. If you shoot up or you take a pill, it doesn't matter. It's the same stuff, you know. And a lot of people, they cannot buy the OxyContin anymore because it's so expensive. You know, that's why there's all this crazy stuff going on here. So they go over to heroin because it's cheaper. You know, there was a way, I talked to Chris Lieben. Chris Lieben is very open about his addiction as well. And he was on our show and he was talking about this fact that with OxyContin, what people used to do, they crush them and then they can liquefy them and they can shoot them up just like they can do with heroin.
Yeah.
And what OxyContin did, they put something in the pill that you couldn't do it anymore. 85% of the sales went down when they did that.
Wow.
So now it's back in. You see what I mean? So that means 85% of the people who take OxyContin don't have a pain problem. They take it because recreational use or they're addicted.
Yeah.
So it's a very scary drug, you know. So I'm very happy here with the weed, at least. You know, you don't have these crazy things. You know, let the people smoke a little bit. You know, let them be happy, and you know they don't start robbing people and God knows what other crimes they do in order to get money to pay for their addiction.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously, Mark was just a real specimen, a great athlete, and at one point looked like he was going to be sort of in the top for a really long time. Do you think if he didn't turn towards the pills and obviously had those issues with his wife or his girlfriend back in those days, do you think he could have been one of the all-time greats and possibly we'd be talking about him as one of the ex-champions and someone who was successful later on in his MMA career?
Yeah, I think so. I do not know that when I saw him fight for the first time, it was in the Vale Tudo, Extreme Vale Tudo, World Vale Tudo Championships in Brazil. And I don't know if he was in the painkillers then. So I don't know if it was because once he stopped the painkillers, his career kind of went south. So it was almost that the painkillers put him in such a phase that he was able to fight. Now, if he never touched the pain pills, when for instance, that fight in Brazil, if he wasn't on painkillers there, then for sure he could have been a guy that we would still talk about as one of the greatest. You know, but I don't know. If he started his painkillers early and he was always fighting with painkillers, well, I know what happened when he stopped the painkillers because he couldn't mentally do it anymore. You know, these painkillers, they put you in such a phase that some people may, I don't know, they maybe fight better on them. I don't know. It blows me away because it takes all your reaction, your everything away, your speed. You know, your thinking. You start thinking so slow. It's crazy. I realized how bad it was. This is a crazy story. This because I was training at the time. I was training Marco Huas and Mark Kerr, both at the same time. And they both were fighting in Japan. And I went to Japan with them. And we were training, working out together before the fight, a couple of days before the fight. And no, I'm rolling with two freaking monsters, you know, like Marco and Mark Kerr. You know, they're much stronger than me and heavier. So I had to put a lot of power in there in what I do. And my tendonitis started acting up. And the tendonitis, once that happens with me, it's a very extremely painful thing, man. It's like that pretty much stopped my career. It's so much pain that you almost can't handle. And it comes from the inside. And I'm sitting there and I go, guys, and I have tears coming out of my eyes. You know, I said, I got to go to the hospital. You guys keep training. I got to go to the hospital. I got to do something. Somebody got to give me something. I can't handle this anymore. And Mark Kerr says, no. He packed up all the stuff. And he says, let's go to the hotel. I got something for you. And I didn't care anymore. At that moment, I did not care about anything anymore. I just wanted the pain to be away. On the way to the hotel, I'm in freaking pain. You know, in my career, I couldn't eat anymore from the pain. So that's how much it was. And we come up to his room, and he pulls out a bottle and a syringe. And I look at him, and he looks at me. I go ahead. You know, I didn't care anymore. And then he grabbed my arm, and he shoots me up. He says, 5 seconds, I'll be away. And he shut me up. And, yeah, 5 seconds, it was away. But I was gone for the whole night. I was slurring my speech. I was sweating profusely. I wanted to go to dinner with friends. I was sitting there, but I couldn't eat. And I looked at him and said, how can you fight on this, you know? How is that even possible? And he says, well, you get used to it, I guess, you know? But to me, it was like the worst thing. I could, you know, you cannot imagine to even step on a treadmill in that situation. So, but that gave him kind of away with me, because I started sweating. And I always asked him, why are you sweating so much? So as soon as I started sweating, I remember I was all like looped up, and I look at him and I said, now you gave yourself away. Now I know why you're sweating. So I want you to stop that stuff. You know, so, but from that moment on, everything went, he was already on his way down. It was a shame. It was a shame to see. I think also the relationship he's in, I think that, you know, you can't blame everybody. You know, everybody, it's their own fault. They choose to stay with somebody like that. You know, and I can't handle that. With me, if there's stress or people shouting at me, then you better stop, because once I start shouting, I'll bring it to a whole different level, you know. But I'm not that guy, you know. But once you go, I will be that guy. If you try to intimidate with yelling, people who would yell, to me, they're such a barking dogs. People who scream at me, I just walk away. I said, yeah, I can't, you know, learn to talk. Yeah. You know, but he was in that relationship and was fighting. She pulled a gun on him a couple of times. I mean, wow, who wants to be in a relationship like that? But for some reason, he loved her. And I truly believe that has a lot to do also with the drugs. And like I said, I don't blame, because he takes the drugs and he does that. He does everything himself. I cannot blame anybody else. But I mean, some people, you know, they start turning to think to ease it a little bit. Oh, let's take a few Vicodins. You know, I'm a little bit more prepared to all the shouting and all the stress in the house, you know. So I don't know. But drugs, man, stay away from it far. I always tell this to fighters. When the amateur fighters, sometimes they ask me to go there and to talk to them. And before they turn pro, and I say, well, if you're already doing steroids, you might as well stop now. That is because you're already a loser, you know, so you're not going to make it because you're already insecure. That's why you're taking it. So you might as well stop now. And pain pills. I always say, stay away from that. That is the worst stuff that they have here in America, because it will hook you, you know. And once you start taking it more than 2 or 3 weeks, like I said, there's only one way you're going, and it's down. You will never go up. You never see anybody flourish anymore. It's going down. It's gone.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting that you bring that up, Bas, because obviously one of the greatest fighters in the world today, John Jones, is caught using cocaine. You know, what did you think of that? Because obviously it's a recreational drug. It's not like heroin or Oxycontin or anything that Mark was taking. But at the same time, you know, fighting and being pound for pound the champion just doesn't seem constructive to his career.
Yeah, you know, we all did crazy stuff, right? I mean, when you used to see me drinking, I was out of control too. And, you know, so, but, you know, after that, it would be 2 or 3 days only. After a fight, after like an 8-week training camp, and I would be a full training again. So with John Jones, I don't see that problem. I truly believe, like you said, it's a recreational drug, you know, but it's just not a good thing. Like, he's such an example right now for a lot of kids also. And I don't think, you know, that he realizes how big of an influence he can be for younger kids and to to be an athlete and to show the right way. If you want to do that stuff, man, don't. Jesus, I do it once after your fight and make sure you stay home. All these things, why would and weed out the people around you, the people who gave it to you, who introduced you to the cocaine. Get these people out, man. They're bad people. If it's somebody close to you, that is not your friend. If one of my friends would do that to me at my peak of my career, I would say, man, get away from me. But everybody wants to be with John, but it's logic. Everybody wants to be with the champ. It's not everybody wants to be with John. Everybody wants to be with the champion. And that's why I did a lot of times. So you just sort of with Mike Tyson, and you see it with a lot of guys. They have only leeches around them, only people who suck them dry for money and for drugs and for everything. Because if they do it, then whoa, wait, it's free snoring for us guys. That's probably how they think. Yeah, they're weasels. So he really has to sit back and he say, okay, this is the guy who introduced to me. You leave, please. And then all the other guys also who were, weed them out. Get rid of them.
Sound advice. Bas, we really, really appreciate the time you're giving us. We're going to do one more thing with you. It's called the Submission Raider Tap Out Round. Bunch of fun questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to your mind, like word association. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we heard at one point when you were focusing on your grappling, Bas, you went as far as waking up your wife in the middle of the night to try and move. Is this true? And what was the maddest your wife got?
Yes, and this happened at least 6 or 7 times. Yeah, and during the day also, when she walked around, say, lean over, let her put a choke on her. My poor wife. No, she's the best.
Wow, she's the greatest, man. Now, we've got a fan question here from M25105. He goes, what spices does Bas prefer when he seasons his meat and steaks? And also, what's a good beef stew that you can recommend for this guy?
A good beef what?
Stew.
Good
beef
stew, yeah.
I always say the beef stew is just about all the vegetables that you like, you put in. And even they say you can't put zucchini in there, put zucchini in there. I do it, because I like zucchini. Take anything you like and just put it in there. The herb, I give you the biggest secret now, guys. This is like the biggest secret on the planet. It's called aromat.
Aromat.
Aromat. And it comes from Germany. It's a little yellow bottle, and you have it here at what is it? The World Market. That's here in America. I don't know if you guys have that. It's a little spice, and that stuff makes everything really, really good. And then of course you can do cilantro. You can all that other stuff that you really like. But that stuff you can put on an egg. You can put on anything. It'll make everything better. It's really great.
That's hilarious. It's like the TRT of cooking, this aromat. Cilantro is like protein and creatine, and then you got aromat, and that's like the TRT. Awesome. Yeah. King wants to know, who was your toughest opponent during your active career, Bas?
I have to say Funaki, because I literally punched myself almost out on him, and every time he got back up, I knocked him down, he got back up, he got him down, and I think the 5th time they stopped it because there was a maximum allowance of 5 times in a half an hour fight in Pancras. So, but it was hard because I kneed him in the face. My knees were literally, I had bruises on my knees and my palms. Both. I mean, they made pictures of it that I go, that was insane how hard I hit him with my palms behind his ear also. And then when he would go down, and then the whole audience went, Funaki. And then he got back up and he started cheering towards the audience. And I was literally going like, dude, this guy is still standing. And then the last one, I grabbed him by the hair. I remember that. I really grabbed his hair really tight. And then I kneed him as hard as I could in his face. And that was the one that made it stop.
Bas, your roots are fight t-shirts. They're hot commodities, and we now see WWE wrestlers such as Natalya or The Undertaker wearing them around. What do you think when you see the t-shirts being worn on the episodes of Total Divas on either? It looks like you have a bit of a cameo with your t-shirts.
Yeah, how cool is that? Because a lot of people are going to go, of course, who don't know anything about MMA. They're going to go, who is that? No, that was so cool to hear. And also Chuck. I saw Chuck Liddell walking in one. They made a picture of on TMZ, and it's really cool, man. That it never stops. Those things never stop. That you can, that it surprises you every time when something happens, or you go somewhere. You go to a new doctor, and then a knee doctor, and the whole time I'm talking to him, and at the end he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm a huge fan. Been following you since '93." And you go like, "Wow, this is." How old are you, man? Because he's younger than I am, but then they know everything, and it's always, it takes you. It's a really cool thing.
That's awesome. Bas, I think one of the last questions, possibly second last, it's a 2-in-1. What's your official prediction, Mayweather or Pacquiao? And just going to follow that up with Conor McGregor saying this week that if you put me face-to-face with Floyd Mayweather, pound-for-pound boxing's best, if I fought Floyd, I would kill him in less than 30 seconds. It would take me less than 30 seconds to wrap around him like a boa constrictor and strangle him. So what's your prediction for Mayweather and Pacquiao, and what do you think of this comment?
I think Mayweather is in a lot of trouble with my answers because I think Pacquiao's going to knock him out. I hope so. And Conor too. I don't know if he can do it in 30 seconds because Mayweather's great footwork. You know, he's got to lock him up. But, you know, and if it's in a ring, that makes it actually easier for Conor because then he's a corner. He can drive him into a corner and then see if he can take him down. Yeah, but Conor should not box with him. That's the one thing. They always ask me with Tyson, who would win? I said, come on, dude, I'm going to get knocked out. You know, it's like against Mike Tyson. Let's be real here. You know, but I would fight him MMA. Then, you know, I would do that. You know, at the time, I was almost actually fighting Holyfield at one time.
Wow.
Andrew Holyfield, yeah, kickboxing match. But then they called me and they suddenly said, no more knees. And then they called me like a week later again, no more low kicks. You know, they start taking all the weapons away. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then he chose to get back into boxing. So, but that was pretty close to happening.
Wow, that would have been amazing. Now, last question, Bas, because we don't want to hog you all to ourselves. Give us the update. How's the neck feeling? Is the arm doing any better? Last time we spoke to you was right after your last surgery. Give us an update.
You know, it starts now. It's starting now. What happens is if a nerve is damaged, you know, they right away when they open the nerves, they get a 100% reaction. So they say, okay, it's 100%, it's open now, but it's still damaged. So now a nerve gets better like a millimeter a day, which is about an inch a month, they say. And I can literally see that now. I can see my shoulder starts developing a little bit again, and my biceps very slowly, but my biceps on the top start developing more than the below. Below it is still really thin. But it's just because the nerve has to go down, it has to, you know, it has to heal again. And so it can function and give signals to the muscles again. But last time what I did 20 pounds 7 times. Now, I started with 5 pounds, doing that 5 times. So, you know, and that was after a surgery. So it's getting up there, but it's hard. I did my first 5 pull-ups in 4 years last week. I couldn't pull up and of course my left arm will do a lot of that. But still, I was not able to do it, and now I can, and I can carry things. I can feel better. I can snap my fingers again. I couldn't do that for 4 years either.
Wow.
You know, so all these things slowly but surely say, hey, wait a minute, I can do this again, and I can do this now, and you know, so it's coming back. It's coming back. It's just a long ride. I think it takes at least 1 more year, and then hopefully my muscles are a little filled in because right now I have a little sticky arms. If you look at it, there's a dent in there. The whole muscle is atrophied.
Wow. Well, yeah, look, hopefully that all works out, Bas. Hopefully in the next year or so, you'll be back to your usual self. You have the 22-inch pythons coming back. And guys, don't forget to follow Bas on Twitter at Bas Rutten MMA and check out the O2 Trainer now at www.o2trainer.com. It's pretty much like a miracle worker. I'm actually going back to the gym. There's a very good chance I'm going to order one myself. Bas, as always, we really, 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 really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, very welcome, guys. I'm always having a blast with you guys. So happy to do it.
What's up, guys? Patrick Durkin Collins here. You're listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest has just come back from an awesome vacation in New Zealand, which was well-deserved after beating Ricardo Lamas via TKO. He is the #1 contender in the UFC featherweight division. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Chad Money Mendes back to Submission Radio. Chad, welcome to the show.
No, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, it's been a good couple weeks for me.
We can only imagine. Now, you know, it seems like you had the time of your life during your vacation in New Zealand last week. You know, we visit the country frequently. Tell us about your holiday and why New Zealand? It seems so far. Why there of all places?
Yeah, that trip was actually amazing. I'm going to try to go back and do it again next year. I loved it so much. But I actually had my dad come out and my girl, Abby, come out with us. So we did a little group trip out there. We went to Kuita Hunting Lodge. It's a place that you can hunt red stag, fallow, sika deer. There's all kinds of different lambs and goats and sheep type stuff, pigs. And I don't know, it was just, I've had buddies go there and said that it was absolutely amazing. So I wanted to plan something right after my fight. I was just praying that, you know, nothing got broken in my fight or nothing crazy happened. So I was able to get over there and do it. But I brought my bow and got some great bow hunting in, and got to go do some sightseeing in town, and we hit the wineries one day. Some awesome wine there. So all in all, everything was just so awesome. I love that place.
Now, Chad, it's funny that you said you did some wine tasting. You actually put up a picture on your social media. You said doing a little bit of wine tasting. Now, let's be honest, Chad, you're not fooling anyone by putting little in front of the sentence.
Yeah, we went to, I think, 4 different wineries, so we had a good amount of wine. But there were some great ones, and there were some that were just so-so, but most of them were pretty damn good. Couldn't stop drinking them.
Yeah, New Zealand's famous for, even here in Australia, when people order wines, they're like, which one's the one from Marlborough, which one's from New Zealand? Now, you're back from the holidays, so we're back in fight mode. Let's talk about the fight. You knocked out Ricardo in under 3 minutes in the first round. Very, very big feat. Did you expect the fight to end so quickly?
I mean, that was something that I thought in my mind, I could definitely get in there and knock him out quick. But Ricardo was a tough dude, so I didn't know, if it was going to happen. Especially that fast, but I knew that it was something like that could happen. But Aldo couldn't even finish him, so it was. I expected this to be a war. I trained for 5 rounds. It was a 5-round fight, and that was something I was kind of expecting. But I just went out there and felt patient. I worked a lot with my striking coach. And Martin, we had game plans. The game plan was to basically get out there, feel his speed, feel his power, kind of figure out his timing in the first round, and then, start picking him apart from there. But, the first couple minutes of the first round, I pretty much felt everything he had to throw on his feet, and nothing felt too overwhelming or too powerful. So, I basically just thought, all right, it's time to cut him off, walk him down, and get in the pocket. And that's basically what I did, cut him off against the cage. And as soon as I was within range, just, waited for him to throw a punch, and I split it. And went right down the middle. And that was it. There's a couple times I thought the ref was going to stop it. Ricardo kept dabbing for my leg. So, it makes it tough for the ref to kind of call. But, I could feel just getting my hands on him a couple times. I could feel that the fight definitely could have been stopped. But to the ref's defense, he did keep reaching for my leg and stuff. So, my only, chance was to stay behind him and keep punching him. But in the last 2 punches, I felt him just go limp after, and I just kind of quit. I looked up at the ref and just said, he's done. And then the ref jumped in. But, it's a tough call for the ref. So, I'm not picking on the ref at all. I think I did a good job.
Yeah, certainly right. And obviously, you did a bit of self-refereeing, I suppose you could say, in that fight. The whole ref thing, it's really tough, Chad, isn't it? Because sometimes refs just don't see it. Was it a little bit difficult for you? Obviously, one part of you would have thought, look, I better keep going because who knows what's going to happen in a fight. But the other part of you sort of prevailed and said, look, I'm going to let the ref know it's over and sort of pull back a little bit. Because obviously you did land that devastating punch in the end there when he was on all fours, but you did pull back a little bit. Was that a tough mental process for you right at the end there?
Yeah, Ricardo's a good guy. I had, a good time doing all the social media, all the media stuff that we had to do, leading up to that fight. I've told people if he trained with me, we'd probably be good buddies. But, there was nothing, there was no animosity. There was nothing against him that I wanted to, it's not like I was like, I need to hurt this guy. So, I hit him with that big right hand in the beginning and dropped him, and I could tell that messed him up pretty good. He kept trying to get to his feet, and anytime I touch him, he'd just go stumbling backwards. So I could tell he was pretty messed up. The last time I got right behind him, I hit him with the, left hook from behind, and then I went uppercut with it. And both punches I felt hit him pretty damn hard, and he just kind of went limp after. And, I could have sat there and kept punching him, but I pretty much knew he was done. So I'm not going to sit there and try to hurt a guy. And I knew he was over. So I just basically looked up at the ref and just said, he's done. The ref gave it like a second, and then he jumped in and called it. So Ricardo actually tweeted me the next day, and he was like, congratulations on a good performance. And he said, I hope your hand hurts as much as my head does. He's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah. No, he's a super cool guy. We have him on the show regularly as well. He's an awesome guy, and hopefully he bounces back. Safe to say, if you had Conor McGregor in the same position, you're not going to be pulling any punches, right, Chad?
No, I mean, that's a fight I punch till the ref jumps in for sure.
I wanted to ask, much has been made obviously about your KO power, Chad. You've always had that knockout power, but this victory was a big exclamation point. Did you do anything in camp for that extra KO power, anything different? And also, what do you make of the fact that, like you said, Aldo couldn't finish Ricardo in 5 rounds and you did it in under 3 minutes?
Hey, I worked with a new boxing coach this whole camp, Joey Rodriguez, and I think a lot of that, I owe to him. It was a lot of straight boxing. I knew that my boxing was something that was going to, if I were to get in there and let my hands go, it'd be something Ricardo probably wouldn't be able to handle. So, I focused a lot on just straight boxing for that one. I've been using something else with the Compex device, and I've been using it on my shoulders a lot. And basically what it is, it's like a muscle stim machine, and it just fires your muscles at a super rapid pace. And basically, so like I can work out all day, and when I come home at night, I can put that sucker on my shoulders, and it just like fires my muscles for like 20, 30 minutes while I'm just watching TV in bed. And I feel like that really increased my speed. It could be just a placebo, but I feel like it definitely helped. I could feel it in the gym, hitting mitts and stuff. So those are really the only 2 things I changed up in this camp. And I just felt unbelievable. My hand speed, my boxing felt crisp, powerful. My timing was great, and it just felt good going in there. So, hopefully we can figure out what's going to happen with me next. Just kind of waiting to hear. I guess whatever happens with Faber and Frankie and Conor and Aldo. So right now I'm just basically sitting back. Doing a little fishing on the river, hanging out with my family and friends, and just kind of watch these fights closely.
Yeah, certainly. And it's great to see you enjoying your time off. You mentioned it just before. You're in an interesting position. You're the #1 contender. Dana White said the winner of Faber versus Edgar might get the title shot. You might get the title shot. Everything's up in the air. Talk us through a perfect scenario. If you could pick your next opponent out of all of the potential matchups, who do you want to pick? Who would you rather fight?
Man, that's really a tough question. Ideally, I'd like to fight for the belt again, but, really I think that's going to come down to, what happens with Conor and Aldo. If for whatever reason Conor beat him, I think I'd probably be the next one in line, even if Frankie beat Faber. But, I could see the UFC go ahead and just going ahead and throwing him in there as well. So, I really don't know, but, ideally Aldo beats Conor, and I get in there and get to make Aldo Mendes 3 happen. I truly believe that it's me and him at the top of this division, and I think with the fight in the States, and like I said, I changed a couple small things. I win that fight, and I'm the new featherweight world champion. So, that ideally would be perfect for me.
Well, yeah, there's every chance that Jose Aldo, may very well retain the title at UFC 189. If he does and you guys fight again, what do you think will be the biggest difference? And you say you tweak a couple of things. Would there be any drastic changes in camp? And do you think you finally found the secret to beating Aldo?
As far as camp, I liked the way that camp went. All my training, everything was great. I think the few small mistakes I made were sticking to the basics with my stand-up, and that's where I got caught. The few times in that fight. So I think working with Joey, my new boxing coach, that's going to tighten all that stuff up. And then working with Martin Campman on my full kickboxing MMA, I think is what's going to, push me to that next level to becoming a champ. I don't want to talk about, obviously the mistakes that I feel like were there, the things that I fixed, but there were a few, and I feel like I fixed them for this last fight. And my all-around game just feels, really tight right now. So, I'm looking forward to just getting back in there and fighting for the title, I guess, whoever it is. But in my mind, it's going to be Aldo.
Yeah, no, certainly. Obviously, you've got a great camp there. So, and 2014 Fight of the Year, so not too shabby as well. It was a great fight. Now, Chael Sonnen on his podcast said that he thinks that you're the total package, Chad, but he thinks that you need to be more vocal in your interviews. He said, I feel like he misses that opportunity, and I feel like Mendes misses it every time. Have you felt more pressure to be more vocal like guys like McGregor in your interviews Do you agree with Chael's comments at all?
I mean, Chael's a master of doing that kind of stuff. You know, that type of shit's for some people and it's not for everyone. You know, I'm not the type of guy that's going to sit here and talk shit about people and, you know, talk my way to the title shot. You know, I'm going to let my actions speak for themselves when I get in there and knock people out in the octagon. You know, this is a WWF. This is, you know, UFC. This is actual fighting. You know, so I'll talk and say what I need to say, but I'm not the type of guy that's going to go out of my way to blow media up as far as faking stuff. You know, what you guys hear is, you know, what I am. I'm a guy that loves my family. I love, you know, getting out in the outdoors. I love hunting. I love fishing. You know, and, you know, outside of fighting, I'm a nice guy. So, you know, I'm not going to be that fake pro wrestler that's, you know, hyping up the mic. That's just not who I am. So, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see there's room for more media push, but like I said, what you guys hear is what I am. So that's what it's going to be.
Sure. And also, while we're talking of possible fights, you know, the other option, of course, if Aldo doesn't retain, would be, of course, you versus Conor McGregor if he wins. You and Aldo shared a shove during a stare down. You had a pretty intense rivalry. If you fought Conor, do you think the rivalry would be more intense than the one you had with Jose?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm sure it would get crazy from time to time. I mean, you pretty much have no choice with that dude, but you know, I think Aldo so far has done a great job of keeping it cool, keeping his head there. So, I mean, in the long run, that's if I were to fight Conor, you know, I'm not going to let him get in my head or do something, say something that's going to affect the way I fight him. So, all in all, the guy's just a big talker, so he can run his mouth as much as he wants, and I'm still going to knock him out.
Yeah, no, certainly. And obviously, we've been watching, and the whole world's been watching this UFC World Tour. Conor McGregor, Jose Aldo, around the world, town to town, UFC embedded, you know, great ratings. Everybody's watching. Everybody's getting excited about the fight. Conor's obviously acting the way that he does, and Aldo is doing his best to keep up with him. What have you thought about these embedded so far? And also, what did you think about McGregor grabbing Aldo's belt away from him during one of those press events? Do you think that was a bit disrespectful towards the champ?
Yeah, I thought that was very disrespectful. But, I mean, looking back on it now, the guy, he's the type of guy that's going to make you a lot of money. So as much as Aldo, you know, probably wanted to punch him in the face like I would, but, you know, he's going to make Aldo lots and lots of money. So, you know, the guy can't be too pissed off about it. But, yeah, I thought it was pretty damn disrespectful.
Now, Chad, of course, these options at the moment would be if you get the next title shot, but one of the other only fights that really makes sense for you in the division if you don't get the title shot would be Frankie Edgar, but that's assuming he gets past your teammate Urijah Faber. If he loses, though, could you see any possible situation where you and Urijah Faber would fight, possibly if the UFC quote-unquote sharpened their pencil like they did for Brock Lesnar and gave you guys a really enticing offer?
I mean, it'd have to be a pretty damn enticing offer. But, yeah, I'd have to sit down in Faber and kind of pencil things out and talk about it. But, you know, money talks, and, you know, that's what we're in this business for. So, you know, I'm not ruling it out, but, you know, the money's going to have to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, right. And obviously, money is your nickname, so you can't ignore the pencil sharpening, Chad. And I love that phrase, sharpening your pencil. I'm just using it all over town now. People don't even know what I'm talking about. You know, you've mentioned it in the interview already, and you've mentioned it to us before a number of times. What do you think is going to happen between McGregor and Aldo in this matchup? Because we had Bas Rutten on the show, the same show this week, and he mentioned that at the start he thought that McGregor didn't really have a shot, and now he's thinking that McGregor might actually win. What do you think? Do you think Aldo's going to win this one? And if so, how do you think it goes down?
Yeah, I think Aldo's going to win this fight. I think, you know, the only chance Conor has is catching him with a punch, and Aldo's footwork, his in-and-out footwork is so good. But, I mean, the problems, you know, we've seen Aldo have some problems with southpaws in the past, but he's always figured them out during the fight. But another thing that Conor does that I think is going to, you know, kill him in this fight is his stance is so wide. You know, we know all those leg kicks are great. I feel like he's going to chop that front leg down. You know, obviously I felt his speed and his power, so I know, you know, what that's going to feel like for him. So, you know, in a world that he actually starts getting tagged up on his feet, he's going to take him down. I mean, there's guys that have submitted. I think there was a 125-pounder that submitted Conor with a knee bar, and you know, that's a guy that's, you know, half their size submitting him. So, I mean, although the black belt in jiu-jitsu, and you know, he has a good blast double leg. I felt him on top. You know, his ground control, everything's solid. So he definitely knows what he's doing in there. So I ultimately see Aldo winning this fight.
Okay, interesting. Now, Chad, obviously when the fans heard you were on the show, they sent in some fan questions, so we're just going to quickly run through them. Silent Soldier, his question is, were you annoyed, and we mentioned your nickname before, Silent Soldier wants to know, were you annoyed that when you came to the UFC, you couldn't use the nickname Money Shot and you had to change it to just Money?
Nah, I wasn't too annoyed, but I kind of knew that nickname wasn't going to last too long. That was a nickname that Faber and some of the guys kind of came up with almost as a joke, and then when I was in the smaller show, you know, we just kind of kept it going. But no, I wasn't too annoyed.
Hang on a second. How come they came up with that nickname? What was that in regards to?
So when the day I graduated from college, the next day I threw all my stuff in U-Haul and moved up to Sacramento. And like the very next day, I jumped right into pro practice sparring with all these guys at Smell. And I had never sparred. I had never done anything like that. It was basically, you know, I only had wrestling. So I, you know, put these big old stupid gloves on, headgear, and shin guards, and I was just kind of standing out there getting popped. And so the only thing I knew how to do was take people down. So I would just blast double leg everybody onto their back. And after the practice, we were all walking to go get food. And the guys were just talking about it, like, dude, your shot is money. And Faber was like, dude, that should be your nickname, Money Shot. And that's kind of just where it came from.
Nice.
Now, Rene Kachok wants to know, Chad, and this is an interesting one. I want to know the answer to this one as well. Conor McGregor has said on a number of occasions that he's planning on moving up divisions if he beats Jose Aldo and going one division up. That doesn't really make sense to us. If you become the champion, shouldn't you have to stay in the division? What do you think about Conor's plans on leaving the division, you know, possibly following this Aldo fight?
I think Aldo's just Conor's just a big talker. I think he's just saying whatever it needs to take to stir the media up, and you know, we'll see when that time comes.
Mess Hall has a question. Now, I know you have a lot of faith, obviously, in your ability to beat Aldo. His question is, does Chad think, or do you think your best shot at UFC Gold is through McGregor, since Aldo and Mendes 3 is unlikely to happen anytime soon? Would a title fight with Conor be the most direct path to a title for you?
Yeah, I think, you know, the most direct way for me to get back into the title is if Conor wins, but I mean, I'm pretty much right here at the top. I don't think my stock dropped too much after that fight with Aldo, and especially just finishing Lamas in the first round. So, you know, I think if Aldo wins, I don't think I'm too far off. Maybe one more fight off from a title shot with him again. So, yeah, either way.
Yeah, last fan question here from Harang Stahl. He'd like to know, would you take a matchup at 155 if the UFC offered you a good fight?
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on the opponent, I guess, the size. I mean, I'm not a huge 45er. I'm kind of like, I'd almost say I'm probably perfect for 45s. I'm a little small for 55s and a little big for 35s, but yeah, I don't know. I guess the fight, it would just have to it would just be determined if, I guess, on the opponent.
Sure. Now, Chad, I think we've almost hit the 20-minute mark, so we're going to run through this Submission Radio tap-out round. As you know by now, bunch of fun questions, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, all right? So first one is, what was Chad Mendes' backup career if you never became a fighter?
A teacher, trainer.
Oh, wow. Now, this one actually comes from a fan called Tullian. He goes, give us your thoughts on Conor McGregor's new tiger tattoo. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that thing yet. It's on his belly button. It's very intimidating. It's on his belly button.
That's not the one where the cat's tail is lifted and that's his belly button, is it?
No, but that might have been a better option. I like Conor McGregor as a fighter, but
I saw that on Twitter, and I was like, that can't be real.
No, that's a good one. I've seen that same image. I like Conor McGregor as a fighter, but this new tattoo just looks a mess. It's a big tiger on his stomach, basically. This tap out round question is from Augustus Caesar. Does Team Alpha Male work on guillotine chokes more often than any other camps? Because it seems like everyone from there has an excellent one.
I don't think we work on them, much more than anybody else. We probably train it just the same, but Faber, I'd say that was his favorite submission when we all kind of first joined Team Alpha Male, and when all the lighter guys were just starting to get into the UFC and stuff. So at least for me, when I first got to this camp, that's something I'd always get caught in from Faber. And so I think the one thing that you get caught in is something that kind of throws up a red flag. So I would work on that a lot, and that's probably just one of my favorite submissions. But I think the same thing went for all the other guys as well, I would probably say. But I don't think we train it, a ton more than anybody else. It's just something that Faber used to choke us all out with, so we all had to get good at it.
Yeah, Faber's the one to thank for that one. Now, Chad, we read that you're of Portuguese, Italian, Puerto Rican, Irish, and Native American descent. We imagine you must celebrate a huge amount of different nationality celebrations with your family. Would we be correct? How did you ever go to school back in primary school days? You would have had a national holiday or some kind of religious holiday every other day.
Yeah, that's crazy. Nowadays, I'm drunk all the time. I have a day off. I'm just kidding. I was pretty crazy, but I think we weren't pretty strict on any of the major holidays, I guess.
Yeah, it's good that they changed on Wikipedia, because I remember last time you said that I think you found somewhere that you were like African American descent or something like that.
Yeah, it was on my Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Now, does the beefcake Joseph Benavidez, who has also been on the show many times, ever annoy the team due to his highly sophisticated taste in movies?
Yeah, I would have to say yeah, every once in a while. I know his girlfriend, or fiance actually, Megan, gets pretty pissed off all the time, because Joe's the type of guy that will sit there and he'll talk about a movie that nobody's ever heard of, and it's probably the least interesting movie ever made, but it's very interesting to him, and he'll just sit there and talk about it for like 2 hours straight, and finally Megan will be like, "Joseph, shut up," and he just keeps on going. But yeah, he definitely does that from time to time.
Oh yeah, he needs his own movie show in the UFC Fight Pass. That'll be a sure way to get people interested in some of those arty movies that he watches. This one comes from a fan, Chad. His name is Casey James. He goes, "Yo, Chad, what's your favorite 3 lifts in the gym?"
My favorite what?
3 lifts in the gym. So what are your favorite 3 sort of lift exercises in the gym?
Oh, 3 lifts. I don't lift a ton of weights. I'm just naturally bulky, I guess, but I guess probably squat. I like doing squats, cleans, and deadlifts. Those are probably my 3 favorite things.
Yeah, 3 big important ones. One of the last questions, Chad, there was some huge controversy the other day. Did the fighter and the kid steal your intro?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even hear it. Was it Country Boy?
No. It was, I believe it was TJ Dillashaw, and they were playing an intro. I don't really understand it, but it was something about strapping your boots in, and I think Fighter and the Kid did that, and that's usually your thing, right?
That's
for
theirs.
Stud Show Radio.
Yeah, Stud Show. No, that's theirs. He's been doing that for a while.
I'll tell you what, you guys are doing something right over there at Stud Show Radio. We've caught a couple of episodes, and they're pretty wild. All the listeners need to check it out. Yeah. Now, finally, Chad.
That's crazy.
Yeah, those guys are crazy, man. Like, it's a different type of show. Everybody needs to check it out. It's crazy. There's just, what it is? It's like the Seinfeld of MMA radio. There's a few guys sitting around talking about stuff. It's awesome. Now, Chad,
but the stuff they talk about and the things that they do is just, sometimes I'm like, holy crap. They just do that.
Oh yeah, I'm like have me and Casper on the show, because we can't talk about this kind of stuff on our show. Now, Chad, finally, give us your argument for all the naysayers saying that we don't want to see Chad Mendes have another title shot. Why should Money Mendes be the next guy to have the next big UFC title shot?
Because I was the only person to do that to Aldo, and I feel like that fight obviously was the most exciting fight last year. So Dana's even said that it was probably the most epic featherweight fight in history. So, only getting better, and I feel like this next time it's going to be that belt around my waist.
Strong arguments there. Enough said. Chad, whether you fight Jose Aldo or Frankie Edgar or Conor McGregor or even slight possibly Urijah Faber, we'll be very excited to see what happens. Don't forget to follow Chad Mendes on Twitter at Chad Mendes, and we can't wait to see who you fight next. Chad, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys have a good one.
Hey everybody, this is Tyron, the chosen one Woodley. You are listening to Submission Radio.
Our next guest is not only a surfer, fighter, and star of the crew, he is now one of the hosts of Australia's UFC Fight Week, which just kicked off this week. Richie Vas, welcome to Submission Radio.
Thanks for having us, guys. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. We're here doing our show. Now, Richie, we mentioned in the intro that you're obviously a surfer, fighter, TV star, and now TV host. Soon there won't be any jobs left in Australia because you'll have taken them all.
Oh yeah, jack of all trades, master of none, mate. Just do my best.
Yeah.
The handyman, of course. Now, for all the Aussies listening at home, tell us about UFC Fight Week. What's this all about? It's a hot new show that's on Fox, and we watched the first episode. It was awesome. Tell the fans about it.
Yeah, thanks. It's basically we try to just do a template off what they got over in the States with Kenny Florian and Daniel Cormier with UFC Tonight. So we just do a similar show just to keep all the Aussie fans up to date with what's going on in the UFC and keep them up to date with all the news, mate. And it's hopefully bring UFC and into lounge rooms across Oz and hopefully change I guess the stereotype of the sport where we have here in Australia and make it more mainstream.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really what Aussies were sort of waiting for. We were speaking to Chris Lieben last week about making the transition from fighter to host. How much do you enjoy being on the other side of the coin, asking the tough questions?
Mate, look, I really enjoy it. Look, talking about topics, like mixed martial arts and things I'm comfortable and passionate about. I have no trouble sort of rambling on and jibbing on about them, mate. So I really enjoy it. So it's just we get cool guests in each week, and like the way the UFC have almost a show on every weekend, there's always something exciting to talk about, mate. So it's a lot of fun to be on the panel with the rest of the guys.
Certainly right, Richie. Now, the fans who haven't watched this type of show before, let them know what kind of stuff happens on a weekly basis. You guys do some interviews, you break down some fights?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only a half-hour show, and we generally talk about the week that's just been, and if there's a fight card on the weekend, we talk about the results of that and, what were the highlights. We also have guests on, like last night we had Rob Whittaker on, who was our first Aussie guest on the panel. And we also do some live crosses to Luke Rockhold and Demetrius Johnson, guys in the States. So we always, bouncing off UFC fighters in the States. And obviously with the LA card coming up, we'll have to have a bunch of the international fighters in and working with them. And then, we always sort of finish off the segment by talking about the upcoming show and, the fights that really excite us on the card and if there's been any injuries or changes or anything like that. So it's basically how it goes. Because there's so many shows on with the UFC, we basically just talking about what's going on, and what's current.
Yeah, it's an action-packed show you guys do, and obviously having Robert Whittaker, Luke Rockhold, and the champion Demetrius Johnson for your first show, not bad at all. You mentioned obviously about changing the public's perception as a sport. What do you think about MMA in Australia and the way it's growing with the public and the public's perception of the sport?
Yeah, look, that whole drama that was going on in Victoria with the laws of, mixed martial arts being allowed to be formed in a ring, but not allowed to be formed inside a cage. That whole argument just was really frustrating as a mixed martial artist because, it's obvious from anyone who's got the slightest understanding of the sport, it's much safer to be formed inside a cage, and a lot of the people who are making the calls on the issue had no idea about the sport whatsoever. So it's great that now people can see the fighters of who they are and inside and outside the cage, and get an understanding that this sport is as professional as any other, and we're just normal athletes like you would come across in any other sport, and just change people's perspective on it, because I think we're struggling a little bit with a pretty ordinary stigma and a stereotype here in Australia, which they have grown out of in the States, and it's mainstream in the States, and hopefully we're not too far behind. I think it's shows like this where we can show to everyone that what goes on in and outside the cage and what athletes are like at home, and all that kind of stuff, just to really make it more mainstream. So
Yeah, that's right, Richie. And look, we've got a fun game we want to play with you. But before we jump to it, just one last question. Now the cage is obviously legal in Victoria. The UFC are going to have a huge show in Melbourne in November. What do you reckon? Will we see Richie Vas on that big card in November? Is that something you're gunning for?
Mate, that is definitely the plan. Yeah, I would love to be part of that first show in Melbourne. Now, from what I'm hearing, they're going to do a huge show, trying to sell at Etihad Stadium. So that's something I definitely want to be a part of. I'm hoping to get a fight in before then, around July, and then definitely fight again in November. So that's my plans for the year. So that's what I'm aiming towards. Fingers crossed I can have an impressive win before November and then be part of that huge show in Melbourne.
Yeah, definitely. We'd love to see that plan play out. I think everyone here in Australia is gunning for that huge November show in Melbourne. All right, Richie, we talked about this game. So before we let you go, basically, we know you're a great fighter, but we want to test your skills as a host. You know that myself and Dennis are often put on the spot with guests, having to come up with questions off the top of our minds. This game is called reverse hosting. So basically, you're now going to be the host, and we're going to throw names at you of different famous celebrities. We want you to say the first question that comes to mind. So you're going to be picturing that you're interviewing these people, and you got to ask them a question. So it's kind of like word association, so you got to be quick to pass the test. So
I knew you guys were going to stitch me up. Now I'm more nervous.
So for example, if we say Chris Weidman, which we're not, you'd say something like, why are you interested in a matchup with John Jones, all right? So are you ready?
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
All right, so the first name, all right, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. They call him the greatest, Michael Jordan. What would you ask him?
How did your baseball career go?
We're jumping to a cultural icon here, a man known as David Hasselhoff. You got the Hoff in the hot seat. What do you ask him?
Does he really know CPR?
That's a good question, because I don't know the answer to that. All right, let's talk about one of the best fighters. People say he's the pound for pound. John Jones is going to be fighting Anthony Rumble Johnson, UFC 187. You got the champ in the seat. What do you ask him?
Geez, I guess where does he like to party? I guess it sounds like we all know he likes to party these days. Yeah, where's good to party in New York?
Yeah, I think so far these guys have all been Americans. Let's talk about an Aussie in particular, Aussie icon Shane Warne. What are you going to ask Shane Warne if you got the chance to ask him something?
Shane Warne, are you thirsty, mate?
All right, now sitting in front of Richie Vas is one of the biggest superstars in MMA. He is known as Conor McGregor. Richie, you got 5 minutes with Conor. What's the biggest question that you're going to ask him?
What's the biggest question? What is that tattoo on his chest?
Well, he's got a new one. He's got a tiger now down in the belly button.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know. I'd love to know the ins and outs of what's going on there, but I can't work out what it is. It's a big monkey or something, or it's a floral number, and then he's got to be tied on his belly. So what's going on with the ink?
It's a gorilla eating a human heart. And you know what? You're not the first person to ask that question. So I think the fans would be happy if you asked that. Second last guest, all right? She's not a fighter. She's one of the most beautiful women in the world. I don't know why she'd be on UFC Fight Week, but let's say Jessica Alba makes an appearance. What are you going to ask Jessica?
Geez, Jessica Alba. How you doing, Jess?
Are you into Aussie surfers?
I'm very starstruck.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got the final one. This is the biggest one for you, Richie. A lot of Aussie people want to know what you'd ask this person. He is a leader of men. Some people don't feel very good about him, including myself, for example. He's known as Tony Abbott. What do you ask Tony Abbott if he's on UFC Fight Week?
Oh, Tony Abbott. Jeez, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan, so I don't know. It'd be easy on a stump, I guess. Just ask him. You can ask him anything. He seems to struggle a little bit with the old reply. So, yeah, I don't know, mate. Just ask him about gay marriage. That one always seems to make him cringe.
There you go. Well, he's got a bit of a boxing background, and you want to fight in July 11th, Richie Vas, Tony Abbott, UFC 187. Guys, you can catch Richie hosting UFC Fight Week here in Australia every Thursday night, 9 p.m. on Fox Sports, which is channel 505. And, of course, check him out on Twitter, at Richie Vasilic. Richie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much, Slade. Thanks for having us.
And there you go, guys. A new show for MMA fans in Australia on Fox Sports. Check it out. And speaking of Fox Sports, there was a great UFC on Fox card, Machida versus Rockhold. A really, really cool night of fights. Me and Casper are going to break it down for you. We'll kick it off from the televised prelims. Cass Sterling versus Mitsugaki. It's a good way to kick off prelims for a card in general.
Yeah, for sure. You know, obviously Aljamain Sterling, he's a real up-and-comer. Mizugaki, a real veteran of the bantamweight division. Just a few notes on this one. You know, Aljamain was getting caught by Mizugaki on the returns after he threw strikes. To me, the way I see it, I know that there's a lot of hype between Aljamain. We will see if he's going to be the future of the bantamweight division. Just a few things that I saw was that he's not quite comfortable with his striking yet. He wasn't that comfortable with striking with Mizugaki, and he was getting caught with some of those returns. Mizugaki, of course, great takedown defense. Aljamain also threw a standing elbow from very, very far away that pretty much hit nothing. The impressive part for me was the arm triangle from the bottom. It's a really, really hard move to get, and the fact that he got it, you know, sometimes guys do go for it in fights, and it's very, very rare that you see it finish. It's one of those moves that usually when you do see in a fight, you kind of write it off. Like sometimes when guys go for really wild triangles and arm bars, you just think there's no way he's going to get this, and for him to actually finish this move on such a veteran like Mizugaki, really, really impressive feat for me. So very curious to see what happens with Aljamain. As far as Mizugaki goes, I mean, things aren't looking that great for him. He obviously got demolished by Dominic Cruz upon his return, and now this marks 2 losses in a row. And to me, the story with Mizugaki is he constantly loses to the top tier guys. You know, in the UFC, he's beaten guys like Eric Perez, Nam Phan, Francisco Rivera. He beat Brian Caraway, but he's lost to big names like Chris Carriaso, Brian Bowles, Urijah Faber, Scott Jorgensen, and Miguel Torres. And the thing is with Chris Carriaso, I mean, he's fighting in the flyweight division anyway. So, in my opinion, Mizugaki, this is sort of him turning a corner. Aljamain, if he doesn't become maybe not a champion, but if he doesn't become a contender, this sort of marks the decline of Takeya Mizugaki.
Yeah, no, it's a great point there. Mitsugaki definitely looking like he's on the downswing of his career. Just really excited about Sterling. Like you mentioned, Cass, there are some gaps that he needs to improve, but that finish, ultra impressive. That transition, obviously, was super difficult, like you mentioned. He's undefeated. Very interested to see what the UFC does with him next. It's going to be interesting to see how they grow his talent. He's only 25 years old. Interesting to see what's going to happen. Now, the next fight, Villante versus Corey Anderson. Now, Corey Anderson won tough. I believe he was on Frankie Edgar's team. He's a super tough kid. Very, very strong. I was very excited to see this fight. Cass, when you saw these two guys were matching up, who did you have the advantage going to?
Yeah, I thought Corey was going to win this one. I didn't give John Villante much of a chance. As we've seen in the past, he's a really, really tough guy. He's definitely got some skills and a really, really good chin on him, but he does tend to gas, as we saw in the Fabio Maldonado fight. I really thought this is one of those fights where they were trying to make Corey Anderson look good, but instead, Gian Villante, you know, he came out looking really, really good. Lots and lots of leg kicks. Those leg kicks were absolutely brutal. I was really waiting for Corey Anderson to start checking them. I'm not sure whether that was just something that wasn't part of his camp. I know that his coaches weren't very happy with him at all, but it was a really fun, really wild fight, and John Villante did get that knockout really, really late in the 3rd round. So, to me, color me surprised.
Yeah, Kali surprised. That's awesome, man. Yeah, Villante took a lot of damage in the fight. You know, he took a lot of punches to the face from Corey, and Corey's a super, super tough guy. Even though he had this loss, he still has a very, very bright future in the UFC. And in that 3rd round, before he got caught, he was really starting to pour it onto Villante. So it was a great win for Villante because Corey Anderson is super, super tough. I do expect big things from this kid over the next few years. I do think he's going to learn from this loss and become even better. And Villante, you know, this is a good finish for him. It was a very exciting fight and a great way to kick off the prelims. The next fight on the prelims, Cass, Pat Cummins versus OSP. Cummins is a big friend of the show. We love having him on the program, and we've been calling for the UFC to give him a step up in competition for a really, really long time now. Obviously, he's been on a winning streak since losing to Daniel Cormier. When you saw he was matched up against OSP, did you give Pat much of a chance?
I thought this is a tough matchup for him because everybody knows Pat Cummins comes to wrestle. That's his strong suit. That's what he does really well. And in this fight, to be fair, he did that very, very well, even though OSP had really good scrambles. But I always thought, as long as it's on the feet, I mean, we haven't seen too much from Pat Cummins' striking, and what we've seen, you know, it seems fairly basic, and I thought if it's going to be on the feet, OSP has a clear advantage. Not to mention, OSP with his wrestling background, I had a lot of question marks in my mind about how this fight was going to go for Pat, if he could really utilize his wrestling. Now, the way it played out, like I said, great wrestling for Pat Cummins. OSP was flying on multiple occasions. That to me was pretty crazy. The scrambles, even more impressive. And that's the thing, like that's twice in a row now. OSP has knocked out guys with just weird knockouts where you don't even know where they come from. I mean, against Shogun, it looked like Shogun slipped, and against Pat Cummins, it was Pat Cummins rushing in, and it looked like he hit OSP with something, and then he went down. I honestly thought it was a slip or something, and it wasn't until the replay that I realized, damn, there was an uppercut. What did you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I thought it was a good fight for Pat up until he got caught with that uppercut. I really thought he was doing a lot of things right. He wasn't rushing in too much. And well, he did rush in to try and land that 1-2, obviously, but he had a few good moments in the fight. In those first few initial moments, I thought, all right, Pat might actually have a shot here. The thing I took away from this fight, though, is even though OSP did win and he did land that uppercut, I just don't know what to do with him. I don't know who you're going to put him up against next because in my opinion, and this is just me personally, I just think he's too sloppy to have a shot against the guys like Gustafsson, Johnson, Richard, or even John Jones, to be honest with you. I mean, he is a very unorthodox fighter and he's very dangerous with those unseen punches, but him keeping his hands down and doing a lot of things wrong, I think some of those top fighters would really capitalize on it. And I mean, OSP, he's a very, very talented guy, but I wonder where they're going to go from here. And if he does get matched up with one of those guys like a DC, like a Johnson, like a John Jones, I just don't see him being able to do the same things that he's done so far in his career. What do you reckon, Cass?
I think OSP is always dangerous while he's standing, but like they made a big deal of during the commentary, he was getting tired, and it was only the first round. And let's be honest, there were some scrambles, but it wasn't anything crazy taxing like in the next fight, Jamila versus Beneil Dariush. So I think with OSP, he really needs to work on his cardio. What I was impressed with was the fact that he knocked out Pat Cummins walking backwards. It was one of those moments where Pat connected and OSP connected. It was walking backwards. It was an uppercut, very reminiscent to me of Chuck Liddell versus Rashad Evans. Not necessarily in the way of the strikes, but in the sense that both guys threw punches, and obviously one of them landed a lot better, similar to, I guess, Dan Hardy and Carlos Condit as well. And also, Chuck Liddell knocked out guys walking backwards. Having said that, you mentioned the sloppiness. I really do think that comes from tiredness and cardio, and maybe even discipline. I think the Ryan Bader fight took a lot of wind out of his sails. And I agree. I don't know who to match him up against next. I think he definitely needs to step up in competition. And having said that, Ryan Bader, even though he was the better fighter on the night, he really stuck to his game plan. And I think maybe it was just a case of OSP not being ready for that. Against Pat Cummins, I mean, you know, he looked decent. He got the win. Having said that, with Pat Cummins, I think that Pat needs to work on his striking a lot more if he wants to be as dangerous as, say, a guy like Daniel Cormier. We know he has the wrestling. We know he can take down almost anybody in the division, but he really needs to make his striking a force to be reckoned with. And I think he sort of can do that, you know, on the down low. If he really works in his striking and looks to knock guys out in the next fight, if he can knock somebody out, it can be one of those cases where he may fly under the radar, because at the moment, I don't think people take his striking as seriously, obviously, as his wrestling. And, you know, we saw improvements. He was doing well once OSP started to fade. Patrick Cummins was getting shots off, but I think when he rushed in, you know, if you watch the replay, he had his hand down. He was throwing a punch, and then there was nothing defending his chin, and that's pretty much what marked the demise for him.
Yeah, you know, I'm exactly right, Cass. And I mean, there were some subtle improvements for Pat there, but he does need to keep improving. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of OSP's style. I don't like his technique. I don't like the unorthodox techniques that he uses. I don't like how flat his feet are when he throws techniques. I didn't like how he was moving back when he threw that uppercut. I just think against a lot of the top guys, he's just way too open. I mean, his hands do go down when he gets tied, but his whole technique just doesn't constitute him holding his hands up very often. He's a very loose fighter, and it's almost like a John Jones with less technique and Anderson Silva with less technique. And I just think those other fighters would capitalize on it. But look, I'm interested to see what happens if they do put him up. He does have a couple of great wins on his resume so far, so I can't knock him because he's had a couple of good wins. But I'm just saying I'm not a big fan of his techniques whatsoever.
I feel like he's a big ball of he's like a mold of clay, and I think he has a lot of potential. I mean, he's a tall guy. He's got knockout power. I mean, his legs are incredibly long. His physique almost reminds me of Czech Congo, just in the frame. He's got an 80-inch reach. I mean, that's huge. That is like second biggest in the division, third biggest. I think Gustafsson's like 79. I just think that, and I think it's part of what the point you're trying to make, Pat Cummins, he's a very good wrestler. He's not the greatest striker. And I think if you look at the top guys in the division, like a Cormier, like a Richard, like a, you know, even say Glover Teixeira, Ryan Bader, Gustafsson, John Jones, they're all better strikers. So I guess the big question mark is, would he have the same kind of success against the better strikers in the division? And I think no. So he's going to have to keep working on things. I guess he's got to do what works best for him. He's got that explosiveness. Just work on his cardio and work on his, I guess, technique.
Yeah, that's it, man. Now, the next fight, and by the way, so far, I'm loving the prelims, lots of great fights, and already better than a lot of other UFC cards that I've seen last year. So great job to the UFC and the matchmakers there. Next fight coming up is Dariush versus Jim Miller. Jim Miller, at one point, was one of the biggest stars in the lightweight division, was riding some ridiculous streak. I believe it was like 13 wins or something like that. Found himself losing a couple of times now in the prelims. I almost forgot he was on the prelims. Cass, you've been following Dariush quite a bit. You've enjoyed watching his fights as of late. What did you think? Did you think he had what it took to beat a guy like Jim Miller?
To be honest, I did, because of his improved striking. I know Jim Miller's a really, really tough guy, but I just kind of think that Jim Miller's at that point where he's a bit of a gatekeeper. You know, he's losing to guys that I think a few years ago he necessarily wouldn't have lost. I think, to me, a big turning point was when he lost to Benson Henderson. That's what snapped that win streak. I believe it was like an, 7 or 8 fight win streak, and he was really on the cusp of a title shot around then. He lost to Benson Henderson, he won against Melvin Gillard, and then he lost to Nate Diaz, and since then, he's sort of been inconsistent. You know, he beat Joe Lozon and won in a fantastic fight, and then he lost to Pat Healy, and beating guys like Fabrizio Comoes and Yancy Medeiros, I mean, those are good wins, but let's be honest, those guys aren't elite competition. So I just thought with Beneil Dariush against Cruikshank, that's a fight that I was really, really impressed with. And I just felt like this is going to be one of those fights where the tide's going to turn and the young lion comes over and takes over. And that's pretty much what happened. For me, the first round was extremely exciting. It was one of those fights where, you know, you speak to casual MMA fans or people that aren't necessarily into MMA and they think, oh, the ground game is so boring. To me, it was really, really exciting. Submission City, similar to like a Joe Lozon fight. Lots of transitions, lots of triangles, arm bars, good positions for both guys. With Jim Miller, I mean, Pat Healy choked him out with a rear naked choke, but it's almost never that you see him getting choked out. So seeing him get put in those kind of positions is almost like the John Fitch. He's got that rubber neck. He's so confident in his defense against the rear naked chokes. But by the second and third rounds, you know, it really started wearing him. I think Dariush started to cruise a little bit. He wasn't going for as many things off the top, and I think that's why the crowd is booing. But all in all, like, that's a really big win for Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, massive win for Dariush. And my question sort of to the UFC is, I know he's not the most marketable fighter, but I think it might be time for the machine to get behind the fighter and really support Dariush because, like you mentioned, Cass, he's only 25 years old. He looks a bit older, but he's only 25 years old. He's a very exciting fighter, and what he's been able to do and what he did against Jim Miller, like you mentioned, was absolutely spectacular. The control on the ground was really, really impressive and a big, big win for him. I'm just a bit worried for Jim Miller. I don't want him to start, like you mentioned, he's a gatekeeper. He's become a gatekeeper, but I'd like to see him come out in his next fight and really show us the old Jim Miller that we loved watching. Jim Miller, to me, looked a little bit different in this fight, a little bit softer, a little bit less muscle. I don't know what was going on in the camp. Maybe he was going for a bit of a faster look. Maybe he wasn't lifting as much. Looked a little bit different, but yeah, a huge, huge win for Dariush. And, you know, the main event of the prelims on a stacked prelim card, it's all happening for Dariush in 2015 thus far.
Yeah, I remember when we spoke to Urijah Faber a while back about being on the prelims and main eventing, and I feel like since around about that time, they've had some really, really good prelims with an actual main event. Like, if you look back a few years ago, there was no main event to the prelims. The prelims were the prelims, and then you had the main card. Now you've got an actual main event of the prelims. I mean, for a guy like Jim Miller and Beneil Dariush to be fighting on the prelims, it must be a stacked card. In regards to Dariush, I think the sky's the limit for this guy, just because he's training with Rafael Cordeiro, and people are talking about Rafael being possibly the coach of the year if Verdun beats Cain Velasquez, which I don't think is going to happen, but we saw what he did with Rafael Dos Anjos, and obviously Beneil Dariush training with this guy regular. I think his striking will really, really improve, and if his striking can match his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, then he's going to be a real force to reckon with. And the other thing is, you know, he's from, I believe, Iran. There's not many fighters in the UFC from Iran, so I think it's good to have him on because, you know, it's like back in the day when you had Anthony Perosh in the UFC and he was like the only Aussie and he was the only real guy that we could get behind, and I think that's kind of like that with Dariush, you know, one of the few Iranians, and it's good for the Iranian market.
Yeah, Raphael is an underrated coach. I mean, he's had so many great fighters come out from underneath him. So it's great to see that he may be the coach of the year. Even if Doom doesn't beat Velasquez and puts on a good fight, I still think maybe give it to the man. Now, Cass, the main card was stacked on this one, and arguably it's a lot more exciting than the UFC 180, 186 that's coming up the following weekend. The first fight to open it all was Paige Van Zant versus Felice Herrig. Now, Felice was on our show. We had a chat with her, and she seemed very confident that her experience and her striking would put Paige Van Zant at a disadvantage. Looking at this matchup, I thought Felice was going to beat Van Zandt. I thought her experience and her skills were just going to be too much for the 21-year-old. What did you think? Did you think that Van Zandt was going to have an advantage in this one?
No, not at all. I don't think she held any advantages. Look, with Felice, she's obviously got a fantastic striking background. She's not exactly a knockout machine, but I still thought that Felice, I thought beyond any shadow of a doubt, Felice was going to win this fight. She was very confident, very relaxed when she spoke to us and leading up. I noticed at the weigh-ins and sort of around the fight weekend, she seemed a little bit tense. When she was entering, there was just an expression of tension on her face. And Paige Van Zandt was very, very, very relaxed, all smiles leading up to the event. Now, I don't know whether that was just a case of confidence or just the fact that Paige, obviously with her modeling, knows how to exude confidence and always keep a smile on her face. But I think Felice, honestly, in this fight was a little bit broken. I think the first maybe few minutes of the fight were in Felice's favor. She did really well. She took Paige's back, and it looked like, oh man, here comes the young girl, and she's going to get taken advantage of by the wily veteran like Felice Herrig. And it's not what happened at all. It was a very scrappy fight. I would probably label this as a fun fight. I would probably say that Paige won not necessarily due to technique, but I think she won more via heart. There wasn't anything that I saw during that fight where I was like, wow, Paige Van Zandt, she's going to be an instant title contender. It wasn't anything where I thought like, wow, look at that technique or look at that move or anything like that. It was more just the fact that she won with heart, she controlled the fight, and she fought well. And I think Felice, I don't know whether it's a case of her coming in overconfident or maybe surprised by what Paige Van Zandt was able to do, but I just don't think that's anywhere near the best Felice that we've seen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wrong game plan for Felice. I mean, I was very impressed with Van Zandt for being the smaller competitor, and she got that beautiful Thai plum clinch, great control. Felice had the underhooks. However, Van Zandt stopped most of the takedowns. I mean, she did a really, really great job, and Felice just pushed a little bit too hard against the fence and let Van Zandt easily throw in a lot of positions. I mean, the fight was really lost in the scrambles. Van Zandt just, in a lot of positions that Felice should have been dominant in or should have kept, Van Zandt just flipped those positions, got the sweeps, got in the dominant position, and Felice was working off the bottom, but there was too much space. I mean, she went for a lot of arm bars that just had no chance of coming to fruition. I would have liked to see her try and stand up and use her striking more. She's obviously an experienced striker. Get away from the clinch and just really use that striking to show Paige some of her skills, but she didn't do that. I think, like you mentioned, Cass, she did get broken. She looked exhausted because she was down on the bottom for too much of the fight. It was just the wrong game plan for Felice, and I was just really, really, really impressed with Paige. She's someone, she looks like a new age of fighter in the women's division, someone with a set of skills, and she mixes them up really, really well. I mean, there's a lot of female fighters in that division that just have one skill that they do really, really well, and that's about it, you know, and I'm happy to see that Paige is coming out sort of like the new breed of fighter in that division, mixing everything up really, really well and showing what the mixed martial arts aspect of it all is all about. I thought it was a pretty bad loss for Felice. I thought she could have won it, and a really, really big win for Paige. I mean, the sky's the limit for her now.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, to be honest. As far as Paige being the new age, like I said, I really think that it was her heart that got her across the finish line. I'm not trying to take anything away from her. I just think that with Felice, she fought a little bit dumb in that fight. I think she should have kept the space, and she should have opened up with her striking. I think that's where she clearly held the advantage. I don't think Paige looked really that good on the feet. It was really only once she clinched up and got Felice down to the ground that she was able to grind out the victory. And I think with Felice, like, she did get some nice trips and obviously lost the control in those scrambles. I think she really needed to adjust her game plan, and that's kind of what she failed to do. And then in between the second round and the third round, you could hear her telling her corner that her legs are tired, her legs are dead, and by the time the third third round came, I mean, it was pretty much a wrap. There wasn't really much that Felice could do. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe that was a case of Felice being so tired that she'd rather stay on the ground. And I don't know whether she tired herself out with all those attempts at submissions, but with Paige VanZant, I mean, look, it was a big win for her. And the other thing is about Felice is she hasn't really lost to too many people that aren't top talent. You look through her record, most of the girls she's lost to, they're big names, they're decent names, they're good fighters. So that's why I thought Felice was going to win. The eyes are on Paige VanZant. I feel like this fight was a fight for the Reebok sponsorship, not so much any kind of title. And I think with Paige VanZant, I'm very curious to see what she does in the future. And I'm curious how she stacks up against an opponent that's a little bit more, I guess, not necessarily mentally strong, but sticks more to a solid game plan.
Yeah, that's right. But, a lot of women in that division don't. I mean, even looking at Carla Esparza when she lost the title, just a lot of them go back to that single skill when they get in trouble. And the thing I like about VanZant is just she puts it all together really, really well. And she may not have the best skills in every area, but what she does is she puts them together nicely. And even though she's not a great striker, she had some good moments against Felice on the feet. And even though Felice is a better grappler, arguably, she just held the better positions and got the better scrambles. So I think in that regard, you just don't see that from a lot of women in the division, being able to put it all together so nicely, especially with such a lack of skill at 21 years old, Cass?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The fact that she's 21 and already has this much success, I'm not jealous, but I look at my life and I'm like, God damn it, why you got to be so young and talented? Like, I remember when we were the young guys, and now we're like 25 and 26.
Yeah, we're old.
We're old bastards. There's people out there 40, like, shut the fuck up, guys, you're not old. I really want to see Paige VanZant against Jessica Penne or Ronda Marcos. I really think those two would be really, really fun fights. Who can out-scramble each other?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really exciting to see, and she's great. She's a great addition to the division. Now, the next fight was Cub Swanson versus Max Holloway. But Cub Swanson at one point was the guy that everybody was saying should have been getting the title shot. I mean, he was riding a really impressive streak, a really devastating guy who got a lot of KOs. Max Holloway, on the other hand, was a young guy, had a couple of losses, lost against Conor McGregor, for example, but is only 23 years old and has had a couple of wins as of late. Cass, in this matchup, did you think that Swanson was going to get back on his title campaign and put Holloway away?
For sure. It's nothing to do with me underestimating Holloway or not respecting his skills, but I mean, Cub Swanson, he's a veteran, he's been in there, he's done a lot, he's knocked a lot of guys out, and I didn't necessarily expect him to knock out Max Holloway, but I just thought he was going to put a beating on him. I thought he was going to control him, and that's the thing, like, Cub Swanson, until he got taken down, I mean, he looked all right against Frankie Edgar. The fact that Max Holloway was able to be this successful against him really just shows how good the kid is, and I think he really flew under the radar for a lot of people. In this fight, I saw a lot of lateral movement from Max Holloway. He set a very high pace. Very impressive that he actually kept up that pace. It's one thing to do it for 1 round, even 2 rounds, but to fight at that pace for 3 rounds is just amazing. Excuse me, great combos and angles by Max. I mean, he was almost doing like a Lyoto Machida impression where he was just moving around. He was in and out. It was almost like a mix of Lyoto Machida and Carlos Condit when he fought Nick Diaz. He really didn't let Cub get off. He was the first man. As soon as Cub planted, he would throw a strike, regardless of whether it was a kick or a punch. He just basically didn't let Cub do anything. And he used his reach and his fantastic timing. There were times to me where Cub Swanson almost looked a little bit lost, like he didn't really know what to do. And I would have liked to see him use more leg kicks to cut off that lateral movement and use his wrestling, clinch against him. If you can't clinch, try and take him down. But I understand that would be hard because Max was moving from side to side. I see no reason why you can't call him Max the Tornado Holloway. From the pace to the spinning shit, the quote-unquote spinning shit, he needs to be called the Tornado. I'm not a fan of Blessed. Max the Tornado Holloway, I'm going to try and get it started.
Yeah, well, we're going to create some T-shirts. We'll create some of those buttons and some other stuff, man. We'll create a van. Yeah. We'll do the whole thing. Now, one of the things that I think happened to Cub in this fight was he was just too focused on getting that knockout, using that one knockout punch and finishing Max. And we've seen it happen with so many fighters. Dan Henderson, for example, just happens to countless fighters where you just believe you're going to go in there and you're going to land that punch. And that's all well and good, but you forget about the other aspects of the game. And I absolutely agree with you, Casper. Cub Swanson, he could have done a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not like he's only skilled in the striking department. He's great everywhere. And I just think he was too focused on landing that power shot, getting a quick victory. Max is moving around too much. And by the time he realized, hey, it's time to put in work, Max just put in too much damage. He tweeted after the fight that he had a broken jaw and a broken hand. I don't know when exactly that happened.
Who did, Max or Cub?
No, Cub Swanson.
Wow.
So I don't know when that happened, but, you know, he's an ultra tough guy. I mean, Max had him in some brutal submissions. I believe it was one of them was an arm triangle, which was super close to being done. Another one was a guillotine that he finished him up with. I mean, and that guillotine that Max put on him, that was such a great guillotine. I mean, a lot of people would have just given up on it, but because he's got such long arms, he was able to finish it nicely. It was a great, great performance from him. What do you think, Cass? Who do you want to see him fight next? I mean, there's a couple of guys that he could go up against. He could have a rematch against Dennis Bermudez. He lost that fight, obviously, or even a shot against a guy like Ricardo Lamas. Would you like to see him step up in competition? This is his 6th win in a row thus far.
I actually think a Ricardo Lamas match would be really good. I know that Dennis Bermudez is already booked in, but you know what? You mentioned Ricardo Lamas. It's not someone that I really thought of, but yeah, put him in against Ricardo. I think that's exactly the kind of step up you need. I mean, Ricardo was essentially fighting for a #1 contender spot. Put him in against Max. Boom, you got fireworks right there.
Well, you felt bad about Page being 21, 23 years old. Max Holloway, 23 years old. And the guy has a record of a veteran who's finishing up his career. That's how many great fights he's had. Unbelievable, 23 years old, and he's that good. It's just, and he's already had 2 fights in 2015, 2 wins in 2015 already, and we're only in April.
I don't know if he's hit his prime yet, but I can tell you this much. Max Holloway is improving with each outing. Every time you see the guy, he's so much better than he was before. And I think the reason why I counted him out of this fight is because he won against Cole Miller in his last fight. Now, nothing against Cole, but he was a guy that was coming from a really long layoff. I think like at least a year-long layoff. And the thing is, Cole Miller has also lost to guys like Steven Seiler. He's not the most consistent fighter. So even though Max is impressive against him, I just thought, look, it was a good fight. He didn't finish him. You know, he was pretty wild. I think a guy like Cub Swanson, who was a lot more elite than Cole Miller, in my opinion, I think is going to take advantage of this young kid. And instead, the veteran got taken advantage of. So, I tell you what, I'd buy 20 hats just so I can take them all off to Max Holloway.
Yeah, man. Well, speaking of taking your hats off, I mean, Chris Camozzi, this guy steps up last minute to fight Jacare. He's already lost against Jacare, by the way, and I believe he was outside the UFC when he got the call. He had 2 wins outside the UFC, I believe, when they asked him to come back and fill in last second. I mean, last second fill in against a guy of the caliber that Jacare is. I mean, you got to have some balls to do that. The fight was obviously a quick one. He got beaten very quickly, but, you know, I had to still go off to him for jumping in there. Cass, any thoughts, any takeaways from that fight?
To be honest, not really. I mean, what's there to be said? This fight played out really similar to the last one. All I can really say, I'm happy that both guys showed up just so they can, not just so they can get a paycheck, but I'm happy that Jacare fought as opposed to falling out, because this fight against Yoel Romero, you know, I'm starting to get frustrated because this is one of my most wanted to watch fights there is. Jacare versus Yoel Romero. Man, I was super excited. And given the fact that Chris Camozzi stepped up, this guy must have like 20-pound balls. I have so much respect for the guy. You know, he lost to Jacare before. It wasn't really that long ago, and he's coming in on 6 days' notice. This is the guy that many consider to be the next title contender. Regardless of what happened in the next fight, a lot of people say Jacare. I mean, he is the #1 contender, so to step up on 6 days' notice to a guy that you already lost to pretty decisively, it takes a lot of balls. I'm just happy that Chris showed up, Chris got paid, and I'm happy that Ronaldo Jacare Souza showed up, he got paid. It's better to have a fight than have no fight. You know what I mean? And if they didn't, what are you going to do? You're either going to have 3 fights on the card, or you're going to bump up Beneil Dariush and Jim Miller, which wouldn't have necessarily been a bad thing to start off the night with. But I'm just happy that Jacare came out, and what can you say, man? I mean, it doesn't make Jacare look any better. He beat a guy that he already beat. I mean, it sucks for Camozzi. I'm hoping that he's done enough for the UFC to go, you know what, we'll give this guy another shot. Because really, losing to the #1 contender, I don't think that takes a lot of steam out of you.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I think the UFC will give him another shot, and good on Chris for doing that. My only takeaway from the fight was that amazing transition that Jacare did into that armbar. I have never seen that before in my life. I mean, I'm just a white belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and me and Casper have dabbled in it, you know, for a few years on and off, here and there, here and there. I've never seen that done before. It was just so... He's just on another level. I mean, Joe Rogan was talking about how good his jiu-jitsu is, but he is just on another level to do stuff like that. He just blows my mind, and I'm really excited that the fight happened. It was great to see him, but like you mentioned, Cass, it just doesn't do that much for him. I wonder what they'll do with him next. Did they say if they're still going to do this Romero fight, or are they looking to put him up against someone else? Do you know?
Don't know. It's a good question. I'm not sure if someone asked it in the post-fight press conference. I really want to see that fight. I really, really do. That's the fight to make. And I think that's, to me, one of the things that really sold this event. You had 4 middleweights fighting. I'd say the top 4 middleweights. You had Jacare, Romero, Rockhold, and Machida. And to me, it was one of those, whoever has the most impressive performance is going to get the next title shot. Now you've only got half of that equation. But let's talk about the top 2 middleweights on the card. You had Luke Rockhold against Lyoto Machida. You know, going in there, you had Lyoto Machida. He lost against Chris Weidman. He had a very impressive showing against CB Dollaway. You had Luke Rockhold, he didn't knock him out, but he almost knocked him out, and then he submitted Michael Bisping here in our own backyard of Sydney, Australia. He's got a lot of hype behind him. Lyoto Machida had a lot of reasons to want to get back in title contention. What did you think? Who did you give the advantage to, and how did you think the fight was going to play out, Dennis?
Well, Cass, I thought that Lyoto Machida might beat Luke Rockhold. I just thought he was just too tricky and had too many weapons for Rockhold. But then he came out to House of Pain, Jump Around, and I was a little bit confused. What was going on, Machida? Who chose that music for you? Was it a Rory McDonald situation where somebody else texted in the song choice? It was so strange watching Machida come into that song. By the way,
he did that before. He did it against Weidman, and also he does jump around. He's Lyoto Machida, lateral movement. I think that's the joke. He likes to jump around, in and out.
I see. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I love that song. And Cass, when you and me go to the discotheque and get our party on, when Jump Around comes on, you know, we love to go in a little circle and jump around ourselves. But look, I thought that Machida was going to win the fight. I thought Rockhold still had a really good shot at it. He looked so impressive against Bisping. My reasoning for saying that Machida was going to beat him is just because I didn't think Bisping was as much of a test for a Rockhold. It didn't really show us exactly where he was at. And God, was I wrong. Rockhold just looked absolutely fantastic. I think training with DC and those guys at AKA has just taken his ground game to another level. His position control on the bottom over Machida was really fantastic. Had some great striking. And I mean, at the end of that first round, when Machida walked off, I have to tip my hat off to Machida for being able to start the next round. He looked like he was done, and they had to really get him into that corner. When he came out for that next round, anybody could see, Ray Charles could see that he was done. He just had nothing left. I mean, his movement was barely there. And when he fell down to the ground in that second round, I believe it was like a pusher. He tripped over or something. It was all pretty much over. Joe Rogan pointed it out nicely. When Rockhold had his back and went in for that choke, Machida didn't even really try to stop it. He didn't use his hands to try and block it and get out of it. I think he was just mentally and physically just beat down by that point, and he submitted. And it was just a massive, massive win for Luke Rockhold. Cass, initially, your thoughts? Who did you think was going to win? Did you think it was going to be Rockhold or Machida?
You know, I was really torn. I think when I looked at the fight, though, you're right. With Bisping, I kind of looked at that as the first round was fairly close. I mean, Luke Rockhold did well, but Bisping got some offense in. Lyoto Machida is arguably the best striker in the middleweight division. I mean, if not in the UFC. He's a very, very good striker. So I thought, Lyoto Machida, he's no Bisping. And the other thing I thought about was Luke Rockhold's advantage is obviously that he's big, he's strong, he's got good striking. And I just think that with Lyoto Machida, he's already faced big guys. He faced Tito Ortiz, he's faced stronger guys. He was in the light heavyweight division. So I just didn't necessarily think that Rockhold's strength and power would be as much. But yeah, like you, man, I was wrong. Luke Rockhold came out like an absolute beast. He really just made it look easy. That's the scary thing. He did what Chris Weidman couldn't do, and I'm not saying that this means that Rockhold could beat Chris Weidman, but I think that's what makes it really exciting, and that's what makes it a really exciting matchup. You've got the story there. You've got a reason for people to believe that, wow, Luke Rockhold could very well beat Weidman. Or, how's this? If Weidman loses to Vitor Belfort, you've got the perfect rematch that Luke Rockhold has wanted for how many years? When we spoke to Luke Rockhold, mid last year, it's almost like all he could talk about was Vitor Belfort, and he has been for a long time. So I think the middleweight division is super, super exciting. Going back to this actual fight, I think Luke Rockhold looked so good in that first round, but right at the end, it was this elbow that he landed to the head of Lyoto Machida. And I think he almost paused for a second. There was a moment where he sort of looked at Lyoto. I think maybe I thought that Lyoto may have actually been knocked out. When he got off him, I thought, dude, Lyoto might actually be out. They may not realize till the ref takes a good look. He wasn't out, but he was like 90% there. He could barely walk to his corner, and that's when I was like, oh shit, this is pretty much done. If he doesn't have some miracle Cain Velasquez recovery somewhere in between rounds, it's pretty much a done fight, and that's exactly what happened. So, like I said, man, I'd buy 20, even 30 hats to put him on just so I can take him off to Luke Rockhold. What a huge, I guess, statement. What a huge win for Luke Rockhold. I mean, he is like the Owen Wilson of the middleweight division. He's so hot right now.
Yeah, that's it. He's definitely hot. And I mean, the thing is, and they mentioned it going into the fight, he's somebody who's hit his prime. I don't think there's any better way of putting it. I think Luke Rockhold is in his prime right now. He's the best that he's looked in a really, really long time. Might be the peak of his career. And I just think, I mean, Paul Heyman said it best a few times. He's a pro wrestling guy for everybody who doesn't know. It's about being the right guy at the right place at the right time. And Luke Rockhold, without a shadow of a doubt, is the right guy at the right place at the right time. I mean, the UFC would have to be foolish not to give him an opportunity to fight the champ next. It would just be a barn burner, whoever wins it, Belfort or Weidman. So I'm hoping that fight happens, and it will be super exciting. You know, a few people on Twitter pointed it out, you know, hoping, wishing that possibly it could happen in Melbourne, Australia, UFC 193, I believe, Cass, in November. I'm not sure. It might not be enough time. When does Weidman fight Belfort? Do you remember, Cass?
I believe they are fighting at UFC 187.
Okay. So that's not the next one, the following one.
That's July. Oh, hang on, no. Sorry, that's May 23rd. Sorry, I'm thinking of UFC 189, which is July 11th. Okay, so that's May 23rd.
Okay.
So it's a month from now.
Okay.
So they fight, that's plenty of time. They could definitely, honestly, they could probably fight earlier, but if they want to leave that to UFC 193 in Melbourne, dude, I'm very much on board. I'd be very, very excited about that fight. And, you know, the talks are that here in Melbourne, we may get 2 title fights. I guess it all depends on what kind of fighters you can get and who's going to draw, and also what arena they go to. If you need 56,000 for Etihad Stadium, yeah, you best believe there's going to be 2 title fights or a Conor McGregor. So if they want that to be the main event, or even the co-main event, I'm definitely all for it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean, that would be a great main event. That would be a great title fight. I think Luke Rockhold's built up a little bit of a following here in Australia after his last performance. So, yeah, that's another great option for the card in November. The UFC has a lot of great options. Be interested to see what happens. But yeah, Cass, just absolutely amazed by Luke Rockhold. A great guy and just absolutely fantastic. A great outing from him.
You know what? A few people on Twitter hit us up and they said that it looks like Lyoto Machida is past his prime. See, that to me is an interesting topic because, okay, he did get dominated by a guy like Luke Rockhold, but at the same time, he was also competitive with the champ in the last few rounds when they fought. So as far as Lyoto Machida being past his prime, I still think Lyoto Machida has what it takes to possibly be champion. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I still think he does have the ability because, you know, he was catching Luke Rockhold with some shots. They weren't huge and they weren't landing as well as, you know, they could have to possibly put him in danger. But I still think right up until he really got dominated, Lyoto Machida was looking decent. So I still think he can go regroup and possibly come back and, you know, possibly even be that champion.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think he's out of his prime. It happens to the best of him. And I mean, Luke Rockhold looking the way that he looked in the fight, you just can't blame Machida. And the thing is, he's still ultra tough. He has so much to offer, and he can be a guy that never becomes champion that still headlines for, a lot of cards because people love watching him. I just think that Luke Rockhold training with guys like DC or Cain Velasquez, he's just used to taking those shots from heavyweights, shots with guys who are ultra tough. So then when you get hit by a guy like Lyoto Machida, you know, you're sort of not surprised or shocked or anything like that. It's just, I think they've got a great training situation there at AKA. They're just making each other tougher and tougher. And I think Luke Rockhold has really, really benefited working so closely with all those guys because you can just see it. He just has great position control. He's ultra tough, and a lot of it comes from his training. I mean, they would be putting on crazy sparring sessions. I know they go hard in sparring over there at AKA. So his toughest fights, I think, would be inspiring compared to a lot of the fights that he's had in the octagon thus far.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think Luke Rockhold not only is a very talented guy, he's a physical specimen. He's 6'3", he's got long reach. He's a huge guy for the division. And on a daily basis, wrestling guys with not only the wrestling pedigree, but the strength of Daniel Cormier and Cain Velasquez, who are a division and arguably 2 divisions above him. I mean, that is as good as you're going to get as in terms of preparation for pretty much anyone in the middleweight division. So honestly, the one fight on my mind right now, other than Weidman versus Belfort, is Rockhold versus Weidman, if Weidman does retain.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. And there's so much happening in the UFC division. It's all unraveling, and it's all exciting to see what happens in the future. Cass, anything else to talk about before we wrap up the show for this week?
Normally, I ask you that. Normally, I ask if there's any final thoughts. You know, I'm glad you asked me, because there's one thing that I want to talk about, something that happened right at the start of the week, and we obviously didn't get a chance to cover it on last week's episode. We were too busy talking about the Fast and the Furious 7. Conor McGregor got a new tattoo.
Yeah.
Now, you might be thinking, really, you're going to finish the show with talk about Conor McGregor's tattoo? Absolutely. He's a celebrity. This is what we're going to talk about. I hate this tattoo, man. I hate this tattoo. A lot of people gave him shit when he got that tattoo of a gorilla eating a human heart. I kind of got used to it, and now when I look at photos of old Conor McGregor, I think it's weird. Like, you know, he's got no tattoo on his chest. He looks so weird. He looks like a young boy. And now he's got that tattoo there. You know, I got used to it. But now he's got this tiger on his stomach, and I just think it's stupid. I think calling himself the Notorious was good. He's changed his name officially to the Celtic Tiger. He's got a tiger on his belly button. I'm really not a guy who... I'm not a fan of, like, tattoos on the stomach. It's got to be a really, really good one, and there's really only a handful of decent ones out there. But it's like, you've got 2 different animals. You've got a gorilla on top. You've got a tiger on the bottom. I just feel like he can't make up his mind. Doesn't change my opinion on him as a fighter or a personality or anything. I just think it's a really, really shithouse tattoo. And I mean, I'm not into tats, but my girlfriend is. She's not exactly tatted up. She's got a couple, but you know, she watches all those tattoo shows like Miami Ink and whatever, LA Ink and all that kind of stuff. She likes Kat Von D. One thing I know through hearing her ramble on about tattoos is they got to suit your body type. So you take a guy who's a bodybuilder like Rich Piana, he's covered in tattoos, but they all make him look better. They make him look either bigger or shredded. You know, it's like if you get sort of a round tattoo on your shoulder, it looks good because it makes you look like you've got big deltoids. And I think this tiger tattoo, it's not aesthetic at all. It doesn't make him look better. Tattoos are like good clothes. You don't buy a suit if it doesn't fit you well. It can be a great color, it can be a great cut, but if it doesn't suit your body type, you pass on it and you let someone else get it. I think it's the same thing with this tiger tattoo. Also, Conor McGregor, I mean, no homo, but he's got great abs. Why would you cover that up with a shitty, ugly tattoo? So, I mean, that's my little rant. That's my way to finish off the show. Conor McGregor's tattoo. Love the fighter, love the personality. Shit tattoo.
Well, I can hear the pitchforks being taken out of the barns and the flames being lit as the crowds flock to the YouTube comment section to tell us how stupid we are talking about this. But look, I'll say this. His tattoo is much like Frosted Flakes, the cereal Frosted Flakes, because it's great. It's got the tiger on there. So for anybody who doesn't get that, look, it's a silly tattoo. I got to say, though, I think Jim Miller has some terrible tattoos. I was watching him in his fight. He has like some weird crocodile thing around his leg. Jim Miller, to me, looks like a created character, a creative fighter that I started creating, but then I had something else to do and I walked off and I just saved it. And then I just played with him one day and I was like, damn it. Why didn't I add more stuff to him? There's also obviously the Alan Belcher tattoo.
Yes.
Who does he have? Johnny Cash?
Johnny Cash, but I always think it's Fat Albert.
Looks like Fat Albert. We're not going to say that that's one of the downfalls of his career, but man, that's a rough one. I'd love to see his explanation about it. So yeah, MMA definitely not the best place for tattoos, but who knows? Knowing Conor McGregor, he'll probably make a few million off it. Cass, I mean, I think that's a great point brought up. I've actually been playing Mortal Kombat. I've been playing the new Mortal Kombat lately as well. And
you've been playing as Felice Herrig.
I've been playing as Felice Herrig, except Felice has been a lot more impressive in the game. And I was going to say, I would love to see like a UFC edition of Mortal Kombat one day. It's just so we can do crazy things with people, just blow off people's heads and stuff like that. But overall, if anybody's thinking of getting the game, it's a good game. The story mode's a bit weak. The level designs I'm a little bit disappointed with, but overall, it's one of the best fighting games out there. So make sure you check it out. I'm really impressed with it, Cass.
Yeah, I'm yet to play it. I've been watching the footage. If anyone hasn't seen Cassie Cage, who is I think the daughter of Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage, Felice is basically going on a campaign saying that she looks like her, and you know what? I actually agree. She looks identical, a lot of similar mannerisms. I'm just glad that we've got this game after the Mortal Kombat fiasco of '86, where we couldn't get the game, and it was. I think, you know what happened? The last Mortal Kombat game, they raised the rating in Australia for R or whatever they raised it to just so we can have the game.
Yeah,
it didn't fit any other rating. So I'm glad that we can have it now.
Yeah, and I think we were one of the first to get them. But yeah, it's a great game, and I think everybody needs to check it out. Hey, just before we wrap up the show, Cass, Felice, was she giving a tribute to Jimmy Snuka in her walkout gear? What was the theme there? I know she likes the
maybe
cosplay.
That's what it was.
Do you know what it was?
I couldn't figure it out. I thought maybe Tarzan, like the female version of Tarzan. She had the sandals or the whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I don't know. But you know what? Now that you mentioned Jimmy Snuka, great point. That's exactly what I think of now.
Yeah, well, okay, we're going to have to ask her that. But, guys, that's all the time that we have left for this week. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. Check out the Twitter. We love chatting to you. If you have any thoughts about anything that we said on the episode, reach out to us at Submission AUS. Check out our Facebook page. This episode's up on a whole bunch of different websites and ways for you to listen to it. Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you want to listen to us, you can. We've got it up there. And anything else, Cass?
Just a big thank you to all our guests. Obviously, Bas Rutten, Chad Mendes, Mike, Quick, Swick, and Richie Vas. Don't forget, any Aussies tune into UFC Fight Week, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on Fox Sports, Channel 505, and we'll be back next week.